Calling the South Maui Community Plan Advisory Committee meeting to order at 5:31 p.m. And could we get a roll call?
Yes, Chair Rob Weltman. Vice Chair Daniel Kanehaley.
Here.
Tova Calendar. Everett Dowling. Not currently present. Okay. Lehuanani Huddleston Haboka. Thank you. Vernon Kalanikau.
Here.
Randolph Leach. Mike Moran. Cody Nemeth. Wayne Ishiki.
Here.
Kyoki Falzer.
Here.
Jennifer Sullivan. Not here. Excuse. Okay. And Brian Ward.
Brother.
Okay, so let the record show that Everett Dowling, Randolph Leach, Cody Nemeth are not present, and Jennifer Sullivan is excused.
That's the greatest manfall we've had so far, but people could still be on their way. I mean, I once in the very beginning I went to the wrong place and had to drive over here. But we have enough to get started. We have quorum. Velina mai na lala o ke komike o lala o kaya ulo no ka papa ho lala no Maui hama. Velina mai no hoi ka poe o ke ena ho lala o ki ka lana o Maui. A me ka lehu o Maui ne. E hono mua kako I ke iahiahi, I ke kuka ana I na I kamahana no ka ho'oponopono ana I ka vai mai uka mai, a hiki ke vai I ke kai, I ka vai hiki mai ai. We have just a few housekeeping things before we get started. I was hoping that we'd have live streaming on Akaku today, and so I didn't prepare to live stream on Facebook. But we don't. It's going to start next week, and that means that for today, there's no live streaming. And we still don't have the ability to testify remotely, but I think we can bring that up with the mayor maybe next week. Might be a good occasion to do that. And then I have some thoughts here from Garrett on our process, and yeah, run the process.
Great, no, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to clear the air a little bit. I know at the end of last meeting there was some tension between staff and a couple of the CPAC members. And I just wanted to acknowledge it. Yeah, I think this process of going through community plans, obviously it takes a lot of effort from staff. It takes a lot of time on your end as volunteers, and it definitely is appreciated. Just to be blunt about it, that the plan has some delays for various reasons, and I think that's part of the reason a lot of people feel like it's just being force-fed. And I think that was mentioned last meeting. It just feels like this thing's being shoved down some people's throats, and that definitely is not the intent. It's just I think the sheer volume. And I'll just in practice, having weekly meetings really is a quick turnaround time, and I commend you all, but trying to digest what you heard, what you're receiving, testimony on the spot, and then trying to do live edits, it's a lot, and we acknowledge that. So I do apologize if people are feeling that this is coming fast and furious and it's never ending. I think if it were to be maybe rescheduled out for the whole planning process, 9 months might be more reasonable than 6 months. Really what we're facing right now is just all the community plans need to be updated, and what had been approved is sort of a regimented timeline for each one of them. And again, the 6-month period of time that we're in, maybe a bit aggressive. It's sort of what we're working with right now. But we will do what we can on our end to share the thoughts of the spec members and request, the extension to get through the process. And again, as I mentioned earlier, with Rob, again, it's, there may have been some delays on CPAC side, but again, we had holidays during it, and then internal to the office, there were some staffing changes that, you may not have seen, but again, it causes a little bit of disruption when you've got a new team jumping in midstream to a project and starting to run with it. So all the way around, I applaud everybody. We're trying to work through this together, and then separately, I think a couple of us are going to try to have a sidebar meeting just to see how we can iron out better communication for the agendas, since that was an issue in the overall scheduling just to acknowledge the chair's role and helping guide this process. So that being said, just we can probably get on to the rest of the meeting, but I do acknowledge that, people are a little concerned and frustrated, and we'll try to make it better.
Go ahead, Wayne.
Mr. Chairman, what happened to our Corporation Council tonight? I thought he was going to be there.
I was going to get that in just a minute. Just want to finish this one item. I mean, we talked about this several times, and I think the feeling of most people is that a good plan is more important than a fast plan. This is something which could affect the lives of all of us and our kids and for generations to come. So we really do want to get this right. And I think that one of the reasons things take time is exactly because of that. People want to take the time to get it right, and that's worth more than getting it done a little bit earlier. Yes. So Keola, we just learned just as the meeting was starting that he couldn't make it today. Now, next week we have a jam-packed meeting because we have both Tanya and Kaonohi, and then we also have 6 actions for the Vahi Kupuna, and then we also have the remainder of, I forget which item which policy we're going into then, or which topic we're going into then. And I'm wondering, and people have not been interested in an extra meeting, but I was just chatting with Garrett before the meeting started. How about we do an online meeting, a Zoom meeting, or a Blue Jeans meeting with Keola at some other time, so we don't delay it, so it doesn't have it weighing down on us. We can get it done soon, but so it doesn't interfere with the next meeting. It's not something that's of interest to the audience anyway, the general public. So, is that something people would be willing to do? Find a time that works for Keola and for us? Looks like people are nodding.
Can I speak?
Absolutely.
This group of us over here are not really volunteers. What you're asked us to make, we're making a decision on an important law. That is our general plan and community plan. Mr. Planning here tonight. This is important. We're going to shape what Maui looks like in the last 10 years because the document we're working on over here is close to 10 years old. And there are many sincere people over here, and I don't want to be having to hear excuses after excuses. Why our legal counsel is not here, and we're writing a document that is going to be law passed by the Council and Planning Commission. I think it is important that we have our legal person here.
So not just for this topic, but in general, for all the meetings. For all the meetings, Wayne, is that what you're thinking?
Yeah.
Okay. Mike?
Yeah, I would just offer, because I pay strict attention to what's going on at the county council, Keola has had to attend a long day yesterday and a full day today, and he's got at least again tomorrow, as they're going through the great committee with all these appointments. So I watched part of it, and I did think that, wow, and then he's going to come here tonight too. So he doesn't need me to make an excuse for him, but I think that's something to consider, that he didn't take a snooze to not come. I think he probably planned it, and then he got hooked into all these council meetings today. So for last few days and tomorrow. So for those who are not aware of it, I just wanted to mention that. Mahalo.
I will talk to Garrett later on about having more presence of corporate counsel. I think that's a valid point. Okay, and I think with that we are ready to move to public testimony. So our topic, is this a point of order?
Yes, it relates to public testimony. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So I just wanted to remind the committee that the chair deputized me last meeting to monitor comments during the meeting. So I just wanted to remind you of the Bob Marley song, right? I shot the sheriff, but I did not shoot the deputy. Just a reminder, right? We'll try it out, see how it goes. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you very much. And I was thinking about that actually, that one, maybe the best way to do it would be through point of order. Like if you notice that something is, because I'm supposed to respect the point of order and immediately take it up, so. And with that, public testimony is open. So we only have one topic on the agenda today, and that's Maui watershed management. So I welcome speakers from the public on that topic. Testimony. And please state your name as you're approaching.
Yeah, Doug Ballard, South Maui resident. I had made testimony last time, and so I'm not going to duplicate that. But if today you're going to be working on action items, one thing I noticed, and I admittedly have not gone through them in detail, so I can't speak substantively about many of what's there, but I didn't see clear linkages between the policies and the action items. And ideally, in a planning document, you want your action items to be implementing your policies. And so I'd make that comment for you to look at. Also, I don't know if you adopted any changes to the policies at the last meeting, because I left after testifying, but I didn't see them on the website. So if there are any changes, is there a way to get a copy of those changes to the policies themselves? And then I guess the last thing I'll mention is it is a little bit of a repeat from what I said last time, and that is how important it is to protect, we think, Maui tomorrow, the gulches as well as the flood-prone areas, and protect gulches from encroachment and development. So, and our comments were made along those lines last time. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have questions for the testifier? Okay, next testifier. Yes.
Well, Rory Frampton, just as disclosure, I'm a planning consultant and I work for the two ranches that are Maui, Honolulu, and Haleakala. I just wanted to support the comments from Michael Reyes that was a couple meetings ago that the chair put on his worksheet, talking about supporting the protection and rehabilitation of riparian zones with feral ungulate fencing and native plants. And also his other suggestion was to support R1 use on the landscape to mitigate access, deer damage, recharge, depleted aquifers, and provide forage for livestock. I think these are good efforts that will help with the non-point source pollution. The last thing I have to add is on action number 4.11. It talks about creating a South Maui Ridge to Reef initiative. And I would just, to leverage resources across several agencies, community groups, to implement actions to reduce land-based pollution that impacts coral reefs. I would just suggest adding the phrase or similar nonprofit entity after Ridge to Reef. And there is a nonprofit entity that has been formed that might be able to fill this role, or there might be others. So I would just ask that you not limit it to the Maui Ridge to Reef. Or other, so just or other similar nonprofit entity. That's all.
Thank you. Any questions for the testifier? Thank you. Okay, next testifier, please.
Aloha, is Robin Knox. I just wanted to clarify, I looked at Chair Wellman's notes for the meeting, and I just wanted to clarify a couple of comments there. On action number 4.03, I had made a prior comment to have that read, instead of stormwater management program, to have a stormwater quality management program. And I just wanted to share my reason for that is that if you just say stormwater management, people might think drainage and management of quantity, and I wanted to make the point that quality is a big issue in South Maui as well as the quantity. And also to clarify, I guess this was Mike Reyes made a comment about the MS4 and PDES permits. And I just wanted to clarify that, to my knowledge, we don't have an MS4 for Kihei. That's only for Kahului Paia urban area. And so there are provisions of the plan for that area that are enforceable through permit and regulation that would not be enforceable in our area. So I think it would be better for us to have a plan that is for stormwater quality in South Maui. And then I'm trying to see, there was a point where, let's see, I'm not sure which action it goes to, but a comment to, again from Mike Reyes, to support protection and rehabilitation of riparian zones with feral ungulate fencing and native plants. I just wanted to point out that riparian zone protection sometimes might use plants that are not native but are also not invasive and are very particularly well suited for that kind of restoration, such as vetiver. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the testifier? Daniel?
Hello, Robin. So on action 4.03, developing a stormwater management program, and you want us to insert quality similar to the Kahului Paia program. Are you familiar with the Kahului Paia program? Is it a stormwater quality plan too?
Ultimately it is. It's driven by the Clean Water Act and the need to protect water quality. And so in the permits that drive that, there are, and in state law and all of that, there are provisions about water quality that mandate that you do things to protect water quality. But I just thought in this context that, you know, even a planner might not be familiar with what that plan is and the context of it under the Clean Water Act. And I would like to make the point that this is about stormwater quality, you know, stopping all the mud floods that go down to the ocean.
Thank you.
It's not a drainage plan, it's a stormwater quality plan.
Any other questions for the testifier? Okay, next testifier, please. Go ahead. So please state your name.
Yep, hello, my name is David Dawn, and I wasn't going to testify in person, but I came to support our CPAC members because it's a tough job and somebody's got to do it. I did send in my written testimony, which was about another 15 pages with diagrams. I spent the last couple of days making diagrams for you guys and putting together in layman's terms what the watershed needs and how to make it function better. One thing I wanted to stress was your definition for green infrastructure was very limited, and we're really missing out because I've given all the examples of other NOAA and EPA giving examples of green infrastructure. We have to include the words, things like wetlands, constructed wetlands, streams, open spaces. Because if someone gets a budget, for example, for green infrastructure, let's just say, you know, Joe Biden's infrastructure money comes down the line, we get a couple of $1 billion for infrastructure, we want to be able to save our wetlands as part of that. Also, they're very functional. And they're one of the cheapest ways we can solve our watershed problems. A few things on here. Where's my short list? Ways to save the watershed, just off the top of my head, is providing space where the water can go. I did a quick tally of all of the open spaces and wetlands that we currently depend on, and a few extra ones that we can easily recruit into becoming water, stormwater infrastructure, and I tallied up about 150 million gallons of capacity we have for stormwater when it comes down the hill. So with a little bit of effort, and we can create the stormwater infrastructure, the holding capacity to keep the stormwater, or a good deal of it, on the land, so we can save our ocean from the pollution and what have you. A couple of the other points that I said was rectifying stream diversions. We need to redistribute the stormwater across the watershed, because currently old-timey thinking has got us daisy-chaining all of the stormwater into the Kalanakoi Gulch, for example, and it's massively overburdened already. And if we went ahead today with the Kihei Drainage Master Plan from 2016, we're getting deeper and deeper into trouble. So we need new thinking where we keep the water close to its original sources, and that's the actual definition of green infrastructure, is putting the water back in the ground close to where the stormwater is produced. So redistributing that, preserving our streams and natural infrastructure, and also doing those upcountry things such as the check dams and the reservoirs. I don't know if you realise we have a 50 acre-foot drainage basin going to waste in the Waipulani Gulch. It's called the Pitilani Drainage Basin. It's not being used, and it's going to waste. It's a massive thing. You can fit like a football stadium inside. I've been up there, and with a little bit of investment, it can be replumbed in. We could take advantage of that immediately. And I put that to Mike Victorino, and he said 6 months will make this happen. But you know, he missed the boat. We missed the end of his tenure. But I'm going to put it to the new mayor and put it to you guys that, you know, we have, that's the low-hanging fruit. If we could just make use of that Pitilani Drainage Basin that was in the, discussed in the Maui Watershed Plan from Mike Reyes as one of his solutions. So, you know, let's just do that as soon as possible. And then the other things we can do basically is stop infilling the flood zone, because those areas already flood. So they're terrible places to build homes and what have you. So keep them as open spaces and places.
3 minutes.
That's it. Thank you.
Hey, Wayne, go ahead.
Question, David. I've been reading your February 13th communication to the committee. If I may ask you, what is your background?
I wear many hats, like, you know, a lot of you. Originally, I'm an ocean sportsman, and I've been in the water sports industry for 40 years. More recently, you know, I've always had an interest in meteorology. I became involved with the South Maui State Wetlands Hui, and I have a, you know, an interest in maps, cartography, and more lately, georeferencing, photographs. I do a lot of drone photography. I do a lot of map referencing. More lately, I've into aviation, and I'm a helicopter pilot, and we do a lot of flights in the area. And so I've brought all my interests together. So I'm an eclectic kind of jack of all trades, but I've been focused for the last 3 years studying the watershed, and I've been involved with the South Maui State Wetlands Hui county-sponsored grant in 2 rounds. So I've basically been paid to look closely at all of the drainage studies and the, you know, boots on the ground going around and seeing what the actual watershed looks like.
So I have a question. So my recollection is that that basin was built as a condition of the Piilani village. That's my recollection. Do you know why it wasn't taken into use?
I do not know why it wasn't finally implemented, but it's sitting adjacent to about 160 yards from the gulch itself. You know, so it would require, I think, you know, under $100,000 worth of excavating, that's in old dollars, probably a little bit more now, to plumb it in, and some engineering would be required. So in addition to the solutions of small low-rise check dams, but that it would be a massive high-capacity one of the order of magnitude that the Kihei Drainage Master Plan was proposing. They were proposing 14 of these things phased in over a 10, 20-year period. So, I mean, I don't know why. There's a lot of information on it, so we could look into it.
Thank you. Any other further questions for the testifier? Daniel?
Hi, David. I would love to see you wear one of your hats next time you come in. There's only two of us wearing hats today. You were talking about you submitted 15 pages of testimony to the CPAC. Are you referring?
At 5:30, I send on the email, but yeah. So I guess it's like a late testimony, but
Yeah, we didn't get it.
It's actually very difficult to get out here, and for every one person who can come here and testify, I'm sure there's 100 people that would love to. But if we had the option to testify remotely, that would be wonderful. I think there'd be a lot of good input at these meetings. So I almost couldn't make it, but we made it happen.
Yeah, we'd love to receive your testimony yesterday, so we could have read it.
I was still writing it. I was still doing the maps and the diagrams. I've been working on it for like the last 4 days straight. So.
Yeah, because it's very helpful when we do get it early.
Yeah.
But I appreciate your effort. And the other thing is, are you aware that Public Works Director Molina said that in the Kihei Drainage Master Plan, that one of the first things he thinks they would be able to do fairly soon was to intercept water Mauka of the highway for Waipulani Gulch. Are you aware of that?
Not specifically, but it is concerning because he's also made reference to the old Kihei Drainage Master Plan, rebooting it, I guess. So there were some fundamental flaws in that plan, especially with regards to diverting or intercepting water from Waipulani Gulch, because they were going to send it. It was a $160,000 trench and put it all into Kalana Gulch. So how to intercept it and where to intercept it and divert it to is a big issue. Because the community rejected the former plan quite, soundly, and because of that, amongst a few other objections too. So I'm concerned when they say intercepting Waipulani Gulch stream water, because it's the big problem. Because you already know it's already flooding in Kalana. You can't put any more in. You can take some out, by redistributing water to other places. But that was the worst part of that former Kihei Drainage Master Plan 2016, was the diverting, the intercepting of Waipulani Gulch water and putting it into Kalana Gulch. So let's not do that.
I would suggest you watch the January 25th meeting of this committee, where Molina, Director Molina talks about that. So, thank you.
Any further questions for the testifier? Thank you. And do we have any additional testifiers today? Going once, going twice. Public testimony is hereby closed, and we're moving into a discussion of our actions around Mauka to Makai watershed management. So last time we finished 4.02, and we're off onto 4.03 at this point. And we just had testimony from Robin on a very small addition to the text, develop a stormwater quality management program plan. So I'm open to a motion to get us started. Mike?
Thank you, Chair. I would make a motion that we adopt 403 with that addition that Robin put in about using the word quality. I mean, we've heard that numerous times over the years that Public Works' job is to just control the flow of the water, not delve into the quality of the water. And if it's not their kuleana, if it's nobody's, we have to do this. That's the problem we have. Nature set up a system to let the water shoot down the highway, down the spillway. But because of what humans have done and built in the wrong places, it disturbed it. So now we have to address that issue, and simply adding that word quality seems like a reasonable thing. So I would make that as a motion, as stated, but adding that word quality. Thank you.
Wayne?
Second for discussion.
Seconded by Wayne. Okay, discussion? Daniel?
I'm looking at Robin Knox's written testimony that we received on February 14th for 4.03, and then she has additional language. I don't know if you see that in her recommendation, which I'll just read the whole thing. Develop a stormwater quality management program plan in South Maui similar to Kahului and Pa'ia's with programs and practices. And after practices, there's a phrase she adds that protect water quality from, and then crossing out for, stormwater runoff management from county and private actions. So, Mike, if you don't have any objections, I'd like to add that as a friendly amendment to your motion.
Could you read it one more time as it's added?
Sure, the whole thing is develop a stormwater quality management program plan in South Maui similar to Kahului Pa'ia's with programs and practices that protect water quality from stormwater runoff management from county and the rest of the sentence is cut off in her submission from county and private actions. Someone typing that? Yeah. Oh, I see it's down there. I didn't see it's on the second page. Thank you.
So protecting the water quality from management?
I might be out of order, but I'm just going to say that wasn't what I intended to say. I think this may be an editing quirk, because I was editing from one of your documents. Yeah, I was just trying to say protect water quality from stormwater runoff, not from county or private actions. Thank you. Although it'll do that too, but.
Do you want to reformulate, Daniel?
No, I didn't really hear what she was saying.
It was not her intention to protect the water quality from the county.
Protect water quality from, that protects stormwater quality from stormwater runoff.
Right.
Yeah. That's that protects stormwater quality from stormwater runoff.
And then that's the end.
No, management, when it goes on management from county and private actions. That's what I see when I read your recommendation.
So testimony is over, but I think that what you're saying is that was kind of an incorrect edit, because it was, her intent is not to protect quality from the county, it's to protect quality from stormwater runoff.
Well, then maybe we should end there.
I think that makes sense.
Do you accept that recommendation?
Yes, I think that was a glitch.
Okay.
Takes many minds.
Accepted by Mike, accepted by Wayne as well? Is that okay with you? Okay. Okay, so develop a stormwater, I'm going to read this quickly, stormwater quality management program plan in South Maui, similar to Kahului Pa'ia's, with programs and practices that protect water quality from stormwater runoff. Period. We want the county to manage these things. Discussion? Are we ready for a decision? Tova looks conflicted.
You're calling me out, so I'll voice my face. It's only that by tying it to the Kahului Paia program, we are tying it to the MS4 requirements, which aren't the requirements because we haven't hit the population threshold. So I absolutely believe in the intent of this and the need for a plan like this for South Maui, even if we don't have that regulatory line that we've crossed. But I don't want to make it harder for us to get a better plan by having it conflated with the MS4 program.
So is your suggestion to just remove that part between the commas?
Perhaps, yes, because it might become a barrier and be shut down because we haven't hit that population threshold to trigger an MS4, which is what that's describing. So if the friendly amendment was, if people were amenable to that.
Mike, thumbs up. Wayne, you okay with that too?
Objective.
No objection, okay. Okay, so even a little bit shorter. Develop a stormwater quality management program plan in South Maui with programs and practices that protect water quality from stormwater runoff. Very clear. Kavika?
Quick comment. I think similar to implies taking elements from not necessarily same as.
Yeah, I don't think either one is the end of the world, but I think Tova's comment is a good one, that we don't necessarily want to tie it to a program which is based on a different topology. Are we ready? Okay, any objections to the reformulated 4.03 as I just read it? Okay, I find we have adopted the 4.03 text that's on the screen. We have a proposal for a new action here from Lehua. Do you want to make a motion for that, Lehua? This is about regularly maintained. And I just want to point out that the planning department has offered some slight modification to that. You might want to take a look at that too and see which one you want to propose.
Yeah, we can go ahead with the recommendation because I saw this I think a couple meetings ago. So I'm not sure where it is in here, but I do remember seeing it prior. So yeah.
The difference is just that you had written, your proposal starts regularly maintain, and planning suggests adding provide resources to regularly maintain.
Yes, yeah, I see it here. So I'd like to go with the planning department recommended. So I'll make a motion for that.
Do we have a second? Mike, seconds? Discussion? Yeah, there's more to it. There's also this, instead of in South Maui, it's in in the Mauka upland areas within both direct and indirect alignment of South Maui to minimize, mitigate the potential damage from downstream flooding.
Chair.
Yes? What, Vernon?
Kavika. Oh, he's still typing. So, just one example. Waikoa Bridge, Malaya Surf, all behind ABC store. So, property owner. There's a property owner, and then that owner, like probably elsewhere, gotta maintain the gulch or the stream, right? Is this the proper place to add, that private owners, landowners gotta, because there's that ping pong ball action that the private landowners and the county gotta clean them, but no, it's not always on the county. So that one parcel behind ABC store, and that's 4 or 5 feet higher than normal. So that's why, it is what it is over there. Those condos get inundated really bad. So I'm just asking if this 4.04 might be the right time to put in some kind of language, putting accountability on landowners. Clean your gulch or your streams.
Can you answer that, Kavika? Should we? I mean, this is about. I think is clearly about the government's responsibility. But the question for Vernon is, what about private owners' responsibility for property that they own?
We're going to have challenges implementing this. The private landowners part would probably be more appropriate as a policy.
Can you say what is the responsibility currently of a private property owner who has a gulch running through their property?
I'm saying that what Vernon was asking specifically for would probably be more appropriate as a policy.
But is there already a policy like that, or is this something new? I mean, are property owners already required to keep their gulches clear by law?
I would have to get back to you on that one.
Have they what? Yeah, that would be good to know.
So it's something we can relive, think about, because...
Okay, so let's make a note about that we want to revisit possibly as a policy to what the responsibility of private owners for gulch clearage. Daniel?
I know that if, private property owners, if their property line runs into the gulch, they're supposed to not dump anything into it. No green waste, no yard waste. So my understanding that is illegal to do that. So they're supposed to keep it, not use it as a dumping area. There may be more, I don't know, as far as keeping it clean in terms of what's growing in there, but I know you can't dump anything in there.
Vernon?
Yeah, we're not going to spend too much time. So you look at Kulani Hako'i and the Waikoa bridge. So nature have its own width, length on the stream there, but because of the amount of silt that comes from Mauka, that stream cannot handle. So it kind of went beyond its load, went north-south, and it ends up, in the Kenoleo Park, the youth center. It inundates all those condos north of Malaya Surf. but it's only because that little stream, it's being taken over from just, several feet of silt and mud. So I know the county was kind of getting blamed on, you got to go clean the ditch, the gulch, but I think it's the landowner gotta do their part, or else. So that's what I was asking.
Kavika, and then Lehua.
Another action item for consideration would be implementing some type of monitoring program.
For public and private gulches?
That's something that we can look at as far as addressing the concern brought up by Vernon.
Lehua?
I was going to suggest something like that to support what Vernon is saying. So I would word it as such, and just to say to identify, I guess, the areas that we need to be cleaned and so forth. So I would like to make it a motion, but I would like to ask for guidance on the wordage. But I like to make a motion for an action, so we don't have to revisit, because I think it's extremely important, and what Vernon had stated is completely true, and I see it. So I don't know, Vernon, if you'd like to make a motion on wording yet, how you think.
So we already have a motion on the table for an action, so why don't we finish that one, then we can...
Oh, yeah, that's what I thought we were supposed to do. So, okay, let's do that first then.
Yeah. So, I think that's absolutely... but that is separate, because this is specifically about the county's responsibility. So, yeah, we have it on the screen now. Any further discussion about the revised 4.04? Daniel?
So, Lehua, maybe you can clarify what you mean by Simako upland areas within both, this part, within both direct and indirect alignment of South Maui. What do you mean by that?
So this was a couple weeks ago, but what I mean by direct and indirect is, I hate to say it, straight down and then come from other areas. So we just want to make sure that maybe looking at the not so obvious areas that might be causing problems. So that's why I decided to use both words, direct and indirect, so to make sure that we get as much areas as possible. But.
Tova?
I think I'm a little bit confused. So we definitely need to check this with DPW, but my understanding is that if it's your private property, it's your responsibility to maintain the ability for water to flow through your drainages. They're not publicly owned assets here. They're privately owned. And so I'm not clear who are resources being provided to do that. Because I don't believe there's a whole lot of infrastructure that's county-owned, Mauka of the highway. So is this providing resources to the private landowners so that they can do the clearing, or what's the... Yeah, clarification would be great.
My understanding is because it's here that it would be, from the planning department. So my assumption is that's the County of Maui. And then that's where Vernon, what he had said, we have to address the private ownership. So right now, my assumption is this is based on what the county is responsible for. Unless Kavika can clarify if it's somebody else, but that's where we got to do the private ownership after. So my assumption is this is county responsibility, but let's confirm.
I think Tova's question was but what county-owned land is there in the gulches, Mauka of the highway?
I would have to get back to you on that one.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Wayne?
being that we don't have corporation council, I want to read some HRS. Thank you, David Dorn. The county's HRS 11.5 are responsible for the maintenance of channels, streams, stream banks, and drainage ways, which may remove sources of non-point pollution. For lands comprising the channels, streams, stream banks, and drainage ways, they are privately owned or owned by the state. The respective owner is responsible for maintenance. And let that be a question put for the corporate council to answer.
Garrett?
Yes, I guess as I read the current action item, at least to me, I was looking at it from the lens of the county responsibility, county resources, and infrastructure. It almost sounds like we do need a new action item for the private side in those circumstances that it occurs. So again, I'm just floating language here. If we wanted a separate action item, something to the effect of develop and strengthen county regulations and monitoring programs to prompt private property owners to maintain drainage basins and culverts on private property, something to that effect.
Lua?
So my initial recommendation states regularly maintain. I did not say to provide resources to, as that's the confusion. So I just said regularly maintain and clear sediment basins and culverts in the Mauka upland areas within both direct and indirect alignment of South Maui to mitigate the potential damage from downstream flooding. And as he had stated, being that it was the County of Maui that would be responsible for that. So I would like to say that I didn't say provide resources, though I just supported saying it. So I'd like to maybe rescind my motion and then like to go with my initial motion. So then there would be no confusion as to who. However, with Tova saying who is it, maybe can we just restate or state the County of Maui? I don't know if that's possible. So that might then help clarify who's responsible, because you're saying you don't know who resources would be given to, right? So if we took away the provide resources, go back to what I had initially said.
So that's one part of the glitch there for me. But the other is I am thumbing mentally through the TMK parcels, Mauka of the highway, and I'm struggling to mentally picture which would be owned by the county.
Even if it's just one, got to clean them. My whole thing is somebody got to clean them. Mm-hmm. So if we don't say it, then... But
absolutely, which is why I kind of like what Garrett was suggesting, which was setting up that monitoring program and allowing more enforcement so that it would apply to not only the county parcels, but also helping us to kickstart maintenance activities in the private, which predominantly is what they are.
Yes, but that would be on a second, a new action. So if we can get through the first one and then add what you had stated. So I think we're going back and forth. Let's just do this one, then support what Verna had stated and what you had said. I support that as well. So if we could please finish up the first one, and then let's do an action on the second one, or another action.
Sure. So, no, just a second. Even if we don't actually, even if we don't have any county-owned sediment basins and culverts right now, which we don't, we could. So it would not necessarily be a bad thing to specify that. Brian?
I liked what Garrett was saying with the develop and monitor and regular maintain. I think just having regular maintain without having a program to actually monitor it puts us at risk. Somebody needs to go check to make sure that it's actually happening, and if it's getting documented that it is, great, and if it's not, then it's being followed through. I think just putting regular maintaining, there's no checks and balances to that.
Is a friendly amendment, right?
Yes.
So it's regularly monitor?
So it was develop and implement monitoring programs to regular maintain, and then the balance of that.
And so in that case, would this apply both to county and to private, or this is still just for county? It's assigned to DPW in the proposal.
My thought was to have a separate for private, so that way it's very clear.
Okay, that makes sense. Does that make sense to you too, Garrett? Yeah, okay. Okay, who was the second on that motion? I forget. It was Mike? Okay, are you okay with this too? Okay. Okay. Develop and monitor programs to regularly maintain and clear sediment basins and culverts in the Mauka upland areas within both direct and indirect alignment of South Maui to minimize the potential damage from downstream flooding. Any objections? I find we have adopted 4.04 as stated on the screen. 4.05, we had a suggestion to add natural infrastructure and nature-based solutions. Do we have a motion either as originally proposed or with that addition?
Can I just make a suggestion that we do the private ones so that we just don't lose track of it going further in the document and forget to come back to it?
Yes, you're right. Good idea.
Okay.
Thank you.
I would propose a motion to basically replicate the first, but for private.
Can I make or maybe ask a question, Brian?
Okay.
So in this one in particular, because Vernon cited the one just down by the Kenolio Park, so because this one just specifies the culverts in Mauka upland areas, so do you want to be a little bit more specific and add, or just say, in all areas?
In South Maui?
Yeah, just because this is just for the Mauka in the upland, yeah?
So I'd be open to the friendly amendment, but we didn't get a second that I heard.
I just want to point out that before we do that, though, that I think, isn't this more about enforcement? So we want private owners to have to do this. Is that right?
Right. For me, it's more about developing a program that's monitoring it.
Oh, I see.
Because at this point, I don't think we're all confident that it's actually happening. So we can say they have to do it, but is anybody going and making sure that's happening?
I see. Vernon?
So I had a monitor. I had a guy who monitors. So Kulani Hakoi. We all know the guy that owns a good piece of that Kulani Hakoi Makai of the Pilani Bridge, right? So they do their thing. I fly the drone, take the pictures, and then I submit it to going to be Public Works DSA, right? Request for service. No, nothing happened. So how we enforce the monitoring, are we going to put more load on DPW to enforcement kind of thing on these private landowners in the gulch? So this is why I brought it up, because the wetlands get their own issues with homeless trash. Submit the RFS. Still waiting, kind of thing. So I guess this is the point. Maybe we got to write some stuff in there. Maybe Kavika, maybe you can kind of see that picture where we're going. Because, no, not pointing fingers or blaming, but we're talking about enforcement. So we're putting the language up there, but and I just gonna continue to submit RFS for service. So just trying to support or strengthen that accountability on enforcement, and I hope that makes sense.
What do you think, Kavika?
I got two questions, actually. One was finishing the rest of the language for the particular motion for your guys' consideration. And then I guess the more specific question as far as what Vernon was just saying about county support. So that would be my two questions that I need clarification on. So maybe we start with finishing the language for this one, and then we can move to the second one.
Okay, so enforcement will be separate topic. Okay, discussion about the proposal 4.04A. Daniel?
So if there's already a statute in place that requires landowners to take care of the gulch, you don't need to develop programs. There's already a law there. And so basically it is an enforcement issue. It is complaint-driven, request for service. So I don't see the need to develop any programs. I mean, what are you developing? Someone that's going to go out and check to make sure that the gulches are being cared for by the landowners. So I think the language of that, the language to me doesn't make sense.
Sure.
It's an enforcement action. It's an administrative action.
Sure.
I think, go ahead, Brian.
So I completely agree it's an enforcement, but I guess I'm looking at this in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Vernon might not be here. So do we have an established program that is there in place, that is documented, other than by your your graciousness for us?
Vernon?
It's monitoring the monitor. How monitors? Yeah, it's kind of like that. Same with Iwi Kupuna, yeah. It's a repetitive monitoring kukua service. So far, I'm okay doing it, but I might move to Connecticut next week. You never know.
Yeah, I was just thinking, having Vernon move or not be there in 10 to 15 years is not an option. Sorry. Garrett?
No, thank you. And I appreciate Wayne, bringing up sort of the legal background. There's a requirement for the private property owners to maintain some of those drainage ways that course their properties. But I think in practice, and you heard this from Jordan, DPW a couple of weeks ago, Department of Public Works has been, their perspective and their duties, I think, are sort of changing over over the course of decades, where maybe historically it has been just stormwater management. Let's redirect this out into the ocean water, but now realizing how much development has occurred in the county and Malka. I'm just perceiving, let's say, looking at the private property owner, they may be getting sediment that's well beyond their control from hundreds of acres upstream from them. Legally, they're on the hook, but from a practical perspective, how are they going to do this if this is a regular occurrence and we're talking about a massive volume of silt and muck, where I think, in practice, the various departments are going to need to come together, and assist Public Works and look at other federal funding sources too on creating a better program to get out in front of this, even though legally the property owner might be on the hook. Do we have some resources that we can work with property owners who either have the silting on their property or Malka to create larger basins and similar to the testifiers earlier, try to keep that drainage on the properties, Malka, before it comes downstream. So I think it's a bigger program we're trying to look at developing as a county. Whatever safeguards and flexibilities you can build into the plan or guidance, I think would be appreciated.
So I think, wouldn't it be great if the Department of Public Works had the staffing and the money and the plans to, the last 2 weeks in November, they go out and check all the gulches? Wouldn't that make a big difference for us? And then they, if they're private, they say, you guys got to fix that. I think that's what Brian is proposing here, really, is the monitoring part, if the enforcement is already in the law. Mike?
Yeah, I would just offer, historically at the Kauniakoi Gulch, when the prior owner had the land, at that time, it was similar, overgrown, a lot of silt. And in that time, Public Works was taking all action to tell that owner that it was his responsibility, that he had to do this. And the owner's response was, I haven't got the financial wherewithal to do this. I can't do it. So what do you want me to do? And suggestions were made, well, sell the land. And if you can't maintain it, sell it. Well, of course, eventually, I don't know what, that was part of the stimulation. Eventually, he did sell it. And now you have another owner, but the problem remains, just what Garrett is saying, that it becomes an insurmountable problem when you're at the bottom of the hill. You know, you're the guy at the bottom of the waterfall, and they're saying, well, stop the water. Oh, somebody's got to stop it from above. So whether we're saying that they're responsible, legally responsible, is it going to be done? But I also think that we're saying what we want. We're not the enforcement division. We're not the lawyers. We're not the legislators. We're saying what we want in our plan, so we know what we're asking for. Can it be achieved? Well, if it can't be achieved, we run into that same problem we have with the current plan. Well, great ideas, but they're not implemented, so it becomes a plan on a shelf. So it is a very complex, challenging issue, but I think that's what our job is, to say what we want. This is what we're asking for in the plan. Thank you.
How about develop programs to regularly monitor and enforce the clearing of sediment basins and culverts? Don't change it yet because it's fine. Brian's fine with that. Okay. Develop programs develop programs to regularly monitor and develop programs to regularly monitor and enforce the clearing of sediment basins and culverts. So tying it to enforcement. Atova?
If we're going to go for it, should we put gulches or drainage ways back in there, because that's really the source of the problem? A friendly amendment to add that language in.
This has been the most collective writing I think we've experienced so far. Regularly monitor and enforce the clearing of sediment basins, culverts.
Chair, point of order, please.
Yep.
Did anyone ever second Brian's motion?
Oh, okay. That's okay. It's fine. So gulches and streams, or just add gulches? Is that good? Gulches, sediment basins, and culverts. That sounds really good to me. Lehua?
You're going to add, I mean, what location, or it's just given that it's just all South Maui, nothing, because we already have the top for the Mauka and Upland, right? I just wanted to verbally state that. Is there no need to do it, or just in case? Oh, the private, the one adding the private, that's the one. I think that was the reason we were talking about it, right? The private.
I would say that I think inherently the only thing we can really do is monitor our areas and enforce on our areas. We can't enforce above us.
But specify that, because the top specifies is Mauka and Upland. But the most important was the private owners, yeah? That was how we got started on this specific topic, right?
I kind of like leaving it open, because in the future we may have more enforcement ability than we have right now. I mean, right now, it'd be totally unrealistic to expect them to be climbing up the gulches and checking, but in the future maybe that'll be a requirement, especially once we start building management up there.
And I think to that point, putting private versus county, that would also not keep it as open, because something with us might be private, but something above us might be county. So to Rob's point, that if it changes, that they start needing to do enforcement higher, that we don't want to limit and say it's only private or only county.
Okay, or you cannot say both. I just thought it would invalidate what Vernon was saying about the owners in that particular area. But I get what Garrett was saying because, it's not the people's fault if what comes from the top down. But I just, again, would invalidate the responsibility of the private owners to some degree, but so if it's not said.
I think from what Wayne said, it is enforced. I mean, there's a law that says that they should be doing this. The question is just...
Is it being monitored? And
exactly. And there's no way to get them to do it unless someone's keeping an eye on it. Wayne?
Mr. Chair, I want to cut to the chase. 1 month ago, we lost Trey Dumalag. We lost it in a drainage channel. Who's at fault? We're going to see a major lawsuit. We've lost a human being that passed. The county has deep pockets. I know the county's going to be liable. I'm not bullshitting. And if we quibble over the language now, we'll see what happens to this lawsuit. Thank you.
Hello.
So that's the reason I wanted to put in, whether it's for county-owned or private, just because it just states that whoever's, a kuleana that is, I mean, absolutely, I would support what Uncle Wayne is saying. So, but if you're, rest of you are saying that those, it's not needed, then I'm okay with that. But again, I just don't want to invalidate what Vernon was saying. Is sometimes you just got to say it, state it, so it's out there. So again, that's the last I'll say about this.
I guess I'd be looking for some guidance. I mean, I'm fine with putting it in, but I also don't want to necessarily tie us in. I want us to have the flexibility, so guidance.
I guess when I look at the language right now, when we talk about enforcement, I mean, the county usually doesn't have an enforcement action upon itself, so I read it as this being sort of the private property. But ultimately, yeah, to your point, I mean, conceivably, you could end this action item with, the additional language of on public and private properties, if you wanted to cover all your bases.
So is that a friendly amendment? Yeah. Then it's accepted.
Okay, now we need a second.
Second.
Second by Wayne. Okay. Further discussion? Any objections? We adopted 4.04A with text on the screen. Okay, now we're back to 4.05. Okay, and we have one external proposal to add, or suggestion to add, natural infrastructure and nature-based solutions. So we need a motion one way or the other. And either way, we can always change it, so. And again, this says mitigate. It doesn't mean end, because obviously we can't do that.
Sure.
Sure. Brian?
I make a motion to accept 4.05 as presented.
Mm-hmm. Do we have a second? So exactly as written. Tova seconds. Okay, Tova seconds. So discussion? Who had a question? Sorry. Oh.
Sorry, yeah, clarifying definitions question. I forget how in the plan we define green infrastructure. Does anyone have that handy? I mean, I'm used to thinking of green infrastructure in contrast to gray infrastructure. So it is inherently inclusive of natural infrastructure and nature-based by definition. But if that's not how we're capturing it, then I do think we should adjust the language.
It says green infrastructure are drainage systems that slow down or control stormwater runoff to be utilized for non-potable use, e.g. irrigation, or provide additional environmental benefits, e.g. groundwater recharge, evaporation, reduced pollution, etc. Examples of green infrastructure include permeable pavements, bioswales, rain gardens, or other rainwater catchment systems. And I think last time Robin clarified that the definition of natural systems is that it actually makes use of existing natural features as opposed to introducing features which are natural in their character. Tova?
In that case, can I request a friendly amendment to say green infrastructure and nature-based solutions?
Accepted.
Brian accepts that? Yeah. Okay. And the second was Tova, okay. So green infrastructure modifications and nature-based solutions along South Kihei Road. Any further discussion? Oh. Yeah, there, no, it is. Yes. Yep. Ready for decision? Any objections? Daniel?
Tova, didn't you say you wanted natural infrastructure?
The proposal was nature-based solutions.
Oh, okay, not including natural infrastructure.
I mean, I'm amenable to things that sit better with people, but I'm sort of feeling like we don't want to get too wordy, and that captures the two parts
Oh,
of
no, I
using
just
nature.
thought I heard you say it. If you didn't say it, that's fine.
Yeah.
Lehua?
In 401 and 402, we did add the natural, as far as I remember, adding in the natural infrastructure, nature-based solutions. So I don't know if we want to keep with the same theme, but I do say if we can leave in the green, but just to keep with the previous ones from 401 and 402. I think those were passed.
Is that a friendly amendment to the friendly amendment?
Yes, it is.
Because I'm feeling friendly, Brian.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think if you're not consistent, someone in the future is going to analyze this and say, why did they want it here but not there? Okay, any further discussion? Any objections to 405 with the natural infrastructure and nature-based solutions? I found we have adopted 405 with that change, that addition. 4.06.
Mr. Chair, point of order. Let's, aren't we scheduled for a break at some point here?
Is this a good time for a break? It's kind of midway. Okay. Okay, 10-minute break, back at 7 o'clock. Restarting at 7 p.m. Okay, 4.06. Provide resources for upland forest conservation, invasive species control, and restoration projects to improve forest cover and functions and reduce downstream flooding. And we have a couple of suggestions from testifiers. One is to add including dryland forest. Okay, it's not just upland forest conservation, but also dryland forest. And the second one is this is a longer one, support the protection of soils and mitigate erosion through feral ungulate fencing and invasive species control and management. So we can have a motion with everything, or just one of those, just the basic text, and then add to it in the discussion. just to get started, would someone make a motion? With the text, the proposed text?
To do it after?
Yes, we can add it after. Okay. And do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Kyoki. Discussion? Kyoki, you wanted to say something about this? Or?
It's kind of sticky. No, so I was just looking at the, the added text and actually supported both. So if
Do you want to propose that as a...
propose as a friendly amendment to add both the
Okay.
dry land and the feral ungulate fencing and all that? Yeah.
Okay, cool. And just so you know, we had the KCA Design Review Committee had a meeting with the ranches not too long ago, and this is something that they're working on, and we think they think, and I actually agree with them, that this is something that could help keeping the deer out of the deer out of the gulches and even the cattle out of the gulches. Any discussion? It's expensive though. But it's a good thing. Very expensive. Any objections to, well, let's see if I can piece this together. Provide resources for upland forest conservation, including dryland forest, invasive species control, and restoration projects to improve forest cover and functions and reduce downstream flooding. So I think it's probably easiest if we just keep this as a separate sentence, the suggestion by Michael, rather than trying to make it into one super long sentence. Support the protection of soils and mitigate erosion through feral ungulate fencing and invasive species control and management. Yeah, I think it does go together enough with the previous sentence that you don't want to make a separate action of it, but separate sentence. Yeah. Is that good? Okay. $2 million. We're going to worry about the money later. We're getting back to that. Further discussion? Any objections to adding the including dryland forest and then the second sentence? Did we get that on the screen? Let's see. Looks good. Okay. Any objections? Okay, we've adopted 4.06 with those two additions. Now we get into the restoration part. 4.07.
Chair Rob, excuse me, sorry.
Yes.
Before we leave runoff and drainage, as you folks know, I've been quite vocal about the Ma'alaya area and the Canal Stream. Like I've explained before, it's a small stream that doesn't run all the time, but when it does, it has extremely bad implications on that fragile ecosystem there in the corner there in Ma'alaya. So my train of thought was to propose a separate action. Now I have some language that calls out that specifically, but if through discussion we feel it would benefit more greatly the whole south area to adopt other language to cover not just that situation, because basically we're talking about a stream that was diverted, and that diversion is causing a lot of problems there in Ma'alaya. And I know that sounds familiar to this side of the bay. So if you guys don't mind, I would like to propose a separate action calling out this situation, if it's okay with everyone. So the meat and potatoes of this is basically just rediverting it to its natural path. Some of the Malaya groups have had discussions with Mahipono. They would gladly take the water. That's a whole nother issue, I feel. I'm not sure if it's their water to take. I feel like it should return to the wetland, personally. That's just my opinion. My opinion only is just that. Only because that western end of the wetland, you guys have to remember, Kealia extends all the way to Ma'alaya, all the way to the near the Haycraft Park area. And the diversion started long ago with HNS and maybe even before that, but with the sugar plantations. Right now, if you look at a satellite image, you can still see the old path, but it suddenly just stops short of reaching its destination. I'm not sure if HCNS was once using the water themselves, but as it is right now, it's diverted into a culvert alongside the highway. And sorry if I'm being repetitive, but just to maybe refresh, because it was some meetings ago, that diversion joins what is an existing stream. And right now it overwhelms it. The two together, the one alone, as far back as I can remember, didn't have any problems, significantly anyway. Now that there's another stream joining it, it overwhelms it. So just so you understand what I'm trying to get at.
Daniel?
Kioki, is this the stream that goes under Haole Street? Where does it outlet into the water?
So it outlets specifically between the two condominiums called Island Sands and Ma'alaya Banyans.
I know that.
Yeah.
I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah.
They built a big basin.
Stone wall. Well, the
Stone-water
basin
basin.
the basin was after there was a catastrophic event that
Yeah.
caused mud to go right into the bottom level of Island Sands.
I know which one you're talking about now.
Yeah.
So you said you'd already put together some...
Yeah,
text?
and again, open for discussions after. Return streams that have been diverted, like Kanayo Stream in Ma'alaya, to their original natural path in order to remedy the runoff and drainage problems that such diversions may have caused.
Is that a motion? I would like you to make a motion.
Oh, I motioned that,
Okay.
that language, sorry.
Yep. And
Thank you, Chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Brian.
One more time? Okay, sorry, you just asked me to repeat it. So return streams that have been diverted, like the Kanayo Stream in Ma'alaya, to their original natural path in order to remedy the runoff and drainage problems that such diversions may have caused or are causing that we can discuss. Yeah, sorry, Kavika. You're doing awesome. Return streams that have been never like Kanayo Stream in Ma'alaya, because you can confuse it with, the backside one, yeah. Kanayo Stream in Ma'alaya. To their original natural path in order to remedy the runoff and drainage problems that such diversions have caused.
Is there a second? Second, Brian. Okay. Discussion?
Can I make a friendly amendment?
Yes.
Can we, in the beginning, include identify and prioritize, or identify, prioritize, and then return the balance you have?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's wise because there are probably some streams which at this point is too late or would cause problems if we did try.
Hey, Kyoki. Is that the one we used to ride skateboard inside?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
We see drive the condominium manager nuts.
I like keep that covert. Yeah.
Yeah. You got to remember too, it's also not just the diversion. I believe it's also the development of the 4 lanes because the highways are graded in such that they drain to the sides. And in the center median, you know, when we're all backed up in traffic and you see all those illegal people jumping the median, even those get no median signs, those medians have drainage grades that also adds to that too. So there's, I believe, some issue with the highway design as well, but for now, I wanna just kind of start somewhere. Thank you.
Okay, discussion? I think this will raise some eyebrows, but I think it's a good thing. Further discussion? Tova?
Sorry, I know we're not supposed to comment, but we do have a policy that says this. So yay, 1-to-1 policy to action. So I think that's like meeting that goal.
Any objections to the additional action 4.06A? Fine, we've adopted that. And now on to restoration. The first one is 4.07. Tova?
Yes, I'd like to propose another action under runoff and drainage. Refer back to a million years ago in the pink sheet where the language was offered up on 2/1/23. Develop a concept for regional stormwater park in collaboration with county parks, DPW, large landowners in the community. So I've spoken about what a regional stormwater park is in the past, but if people forget what that's about, I'm happy to get into it a little bit more.
Is that a motion?
Yes, I would like to propose adding that as a new action.
Yeah, I'd like to second that motion because I think a regional stormwater park would work perfectly with a water park.
That's a condition. Sign me up. Kavika? Oh, the paper, okay. I couldn't find it either. There's been a lot of exciting things happening the last 10, 20 years around water management. Do you want to specify it's going to be free entry? Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? So county parks, this is county parks department. Okay.
Chair.
Yes?
Do we want to, don't we want to have, would we want to have more than just a concept? Because we can have a concept, but then if we don't do anything with it.
This is supposed to be good for 20 years, so we probably want to do more than just the concept in 20 years. Good point.
So maybe a friendly amendment to develop concept and implement for regional stormwater park? Okay.
So I think maybe develop concept for and implement regional stormwater park. Just to put that out there, that people know what a stormwater park is?
No.
Okay, you want to just briefly describe what it would do?
Absolutely. So stormwater parks are something that's being adopted in a lot of areas where it serves a dual purpose. So perhaps this would be above the urban growth boundary, but it would be a sufficient size that those 99 days out of 100, it could serve as a park. Be trails, be whatever the community wants, but be designed so that it was a sufficient size to capture, treat, and infiltrate stormwater during those peak events. So you can get a lot more needs of the community met in one place, both in terms of the scale of the intervention for stormwater management and fulfilling our other requirement to be out in nature more and potentially integrate restoration and other things.
Daniel?
So it's kind of following the green belt concept. Not quite as large as a green belt, but something like what Daniel Hazley was talking about, a green belt between the urban area and the below and the uplands.
Green belts is the right direction. It can be much more, there can be much more design around it. You know, for example, in Japan, every channel is playing fields on the side. When the water rises, it fills in those areas. So it can be as tricked out or as straightforward. It could be a green belt, but likely more because a green belt wouldn't necessarily allow you to trap sediment that could be cleaned out easily when needed.
Hello.
So is that the one by Safeway and then by the pool? Are those two examples of a stormwater park, or is that a portion or similar to it?
That could be one concept. I envision something bigger and wilder and done in collaboration with the interests of the community.
We get one already, Kalama Park. The bugger flood, everybody gotta wait 5 days. And then go wipe down the swing. Yeah, Kalama Park, we had that, 22 years now. So we can follow that model, right?
and Kanaha.
Mike?
Yeah, I recall a long time ago when I lived in California, there were recreational areas like that. And they were built in so that, in like kind of a bowl. And there was one in the San Fernando Valley. I mean, it was huge. It had several softball, baseball fields, and nothing was hardened. I mean, there was no like tennis courts or anything. It was all just earthen. And when that event happened, or if that event happened, a flood, well, then it would just absorb the water. And it reminds me when we say about building a river walk under the highway for the school. People say, well, you can't do that because it would flood. Well, yeah, you can use the land the rest of the year when there's no flood. So I recall that, and it was a very successful thing. There was never any question about what happens when the flood comes. You abandon the park for a few days, and so I thought that was a good plan then, and that sounds like a good plan now. Tova, thank you.
Tova?
I'll just add to that. In the case here, because we know we have a sediment problem, it would require. I mean, again, this is something to be designed collaboratively with the people who are having interest in it. But in my imagination, it would need to have areas for sediment catchment, because we don't just have water coming down anymore. But yes, so it would be like that, but having to have the engineered dimensions. So it might not be just wait till the water infiltrates in 3 days and we can play again. There might be another step in there. But I think it has the potential to serve the needs of the South Maui community.
Further discussion? Any objections to the new 4.06B for the Regional Stormwater Park? I'm going to adopt the 4.06B. Daniel?
Are we on to the next item?
Yes, unless.
There are several actions proposed by Robin Knox.
Mic, please.
There are several proposed actions from Robin Knox that might fit under runoff and drainage. I'm just going to I don't know if you have that handout. It's on 135 of her handout. And one of them is to implement the Southwest Maui watershed plan. Another one is to establish a watershed advisory group, which includes participation from stakeholders, Mauka to Makai, including agencies that manage or regulate lands, residents and landowners, interested community groups, and NGOs. Anyway, and there's a whole list that she has here, but I like the one about implementing the Southwest Maui watershed plan.
So I think these are all on page 135, the last page of the handout. Purple color.
The ones with all the comments from various folks. It's on the last page of that. They're comments from.
So why don't we do them one at a time, unless you think they could be combined?
I'll just start with the implement the Southwest Maui watershed plan.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to make a motion to do that.
Okay. Second by Brian. Tora?
The ballot was ringing as we added that language into 4.02 last week.
Not quite the same, but yeah. It's what 4.02 says to update.
And add the recommendations of the Southwest
Right.
Maui watershed plan.
Yeah. Whereas this says explicitly implement the Southwest Maui watershed plan. I mean, you could make a case either way. You could make the case that we need to modify the key drainage master plan using advice from the Southwest Maui watershed plan, but you could also say you just want to implement the Southwest Maui watershed plan, which I think is broader.
Okay.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second for Brian. Yeah, we've talked about the Southwest Maui watershed plan before. Any objections to adding an action to implement the Southwest Maui watershed plan? Okay, fine, we've adopted that as apparently 4.06C. Go ahead, Daniel.
Well, anyone else interested in making a motion to adopt any of those other suggestions? I like the one about, I think we talked about this, and maybe we have it somewhere already, but establishing a watershed advisory group which includes participation from stakeholders, Mako to Makai.
I think we did that.
Did we do that? I kind of remember us doing that somewhere.
But
I think that that language might be appropriate to replace action 4.11 because it's just spelling out what I think is kind of tacitly under that recommendation, but it's better to have it spelled out. Now we're jumping around like mad, but
if we do, I think we should combine them. We should combine some of the language from 4.11 because it's it talks specifically about what the collaboration should do.
Chair. To Toa's point, we did have a policy which was 2.4.16, which was encourage the coordination between South Maui and upcountry groups in discussing planning and managing Kula and Hanahuka watersheds.
Yeah, that was it. That was the one, the policy I remember. So wouldn't this be more of an action to the policy?
Yeah.
Okay, so for discussion purposes, I'd like to make a motion to add a new action to establish. Kavika, do you see it? Okay. Kavika will type it out at 55 words per minute.
Now that we said, I remember that's exactly what we said when we were discussing that. There would be a corresponding action.
So I'll second the motion.
Brian seconds. Even though Kaviki hasn't finished typing. This corresponds pretty exactly to our thinking when we did the policy. We have it on the screen. Let's see. NGOs. Okay, that looks right. Discussion. Any objections to the new action 4.06D? And we have adopted that one. This last one on the page sounds really valuable too, but I don't know if...
I'll do it.
Daniel makes a motion for establishing a watershed-wide water quality monitoring program to measure the quality of runoff and mass loading of pollutants from the major gulches, streams, waterways. Seems like that, unless that's something that already exists, it seems like it's something we should have.
We do need good data.
Mm-hmm.
And this would help us to gather good data on water quality. And so, yeah, I think it's a great action. So I make a motion to include that as a...
I'll second, and if I could make a friendly amendment.
Go ahead.
It should be establish and implement.
I don't like it. It sounds great, Brian.
Cool. You know, when you see this, you kind of wonder, we don't have this? How do we make decisions? Further discussion? Any objections to the new action? 4.06E. I find we have adopted the new action 4.06E.
Chair.
Go ahead.
Can I ask a question, because I don't know the answer to this, for the third one down, that was create a watershed management program which requires the Department of Planning and Department of Public Works to comply with the watershed plans and practices when issuing permits. Is there a program or something of that that's in place?
I can't say. Is that something that rings a bell with Garrett or Kavika?
Yeah, at this point, I really don't have specifics on what is currently established for DPW's approach on managing this system. It's possible, but I really couldn't tell you definitively.
I'm not sure about the language, but this sounds like a really reasonable thing, because it's kind of what we've been talking about, is that when permits are issued, you shouldn't just... So currently, the requirement is if you want to build something on a property, it is that it should not contribute to the runoff. In other words, any additional runoff should stay on the property. That's not really enough if what we're worrying about is aggregate or affecting the ocean. So this would require take into consideration broader concerns than just what's happening on the property itself. That's why I read it. Is this something that sounds implementable? Does it make sense to you guys in planning?
Yeah, I think it is reasonable. I mean, you'd hope that any newer stormwater management approach should be having these monitoring at beyond just that parcel by parcel basis. And generally, with new construction, we'll have an engineer verify that your post development runoff basically stays on site to the best you can. But I think what we're faced with as a county is, again, the years and years of maybe less active management and maybe not the best design, where now we're having to go back and sort of retrofit mass swaths. I think the new development is probably trying to capture it as best they can and put best management practices in place. But trying to get a grasp of on a whole watershed-wide basis. You'd hope this would be some great initial steps to say, hey, this is the goal. I think it's reasonable.
Garrett, you want to make a motion?
So did you get an answer?
Yeah, it doesn't really exist.
Is that?
It doesn't really exist. So I would move to adopt the language that was proposed.
Is there a second? Second by Daniel. Any discussion? Any objections to the new language on establishing a watershed advisory group?
I guess maybe a friendly amendment that is create and implement. I'm getting stuck on the implement tonight, but because again, if we create the program but we don't implement it, it's not going to do us any good.
Oh, I see. Can you say it one more time?
Create and implement watershed management program.
Got it. Okay with you, Daniel?
Yes.
Further discussion? Any objections? I find we've adopted the 4.06F, Greater Watershed Management Program. Okay. And that was the last of the ones on the added ones on that page. So let's flip back to restoration. .07, create a wetland preservation and restoration program for South Maui to reduce flood impacts from stormwater runoff improve coastal water quality to protect sensitive ecosystems and expand open space areas. Tova,
I move to adopt as written.
is there a second? Second by Kyoki. Again, this is one of the things where you kind of wonder, what? We don't have one? Any further discussion?
Can I do a friendly amendment to include implement?
So what would that look like? Create and implement?
Create and implement.
Okay.
That's just going to be my thing tonight.
Okay. Any further discussion? By, who proposed it? By Tova. Okay, Tova accepts it? Okay. Any objections to 4.07 with create and implement? Fine, we have adopted that one. 4.08 continues to support the Laia Wetland Restoration Project. Develop a low-impact pedestrian and bike path near the Laia Wetland to allow access. Probably should be to the beach and greenway.
Chair,
Daniel?
do we interpret support as fund? Could it be fund? This is,
That's a good point. Support is kind of vague.
is this restoration project getting grant funding? I don't know.
Yeah, it does. And so this would be the massage parlor or behind Salvation Army. So across the Laia wetland. Oh, there's the Muli Vine across the street, yeah. So there's funding for that project. I just had a question. Low impact pedestrian and bike path near the Laia wetland to allow access the beach and greenway. Mm-hmm. I just thinking how you get to the beach. No more access. I mean, I don't see no access unless we go through that gated driveway illegally to the beach. So I just wondering how you get beach access.
So on the one hand, it's always really attractive to me to combine preservation with recreation, to be able to walk, because when people see it, they enjoy it, and they're more likely to protect it and spend money on it. But on the other hand, I know that Cody had concerns about any walking at all and establishing paths in the wetland. Laura?
So since this is specific for the Laia Wetland Restoration Project, do you want to send similar projects as well? Because there are other areas that might need the support, so we should put it in now. Vernon, what do you think? Going to get more maybe projects, then might as well throw them in there now, yeah?
Yeah, might as well throw them in there now.
Okay.
Because, I mean, we know about Cody's project in there. It's being funded. There might be another one coming up sometime this year. So, yep.
So could I make a friendly amendment to your amendment, which would be to the expand? So it's not just to include similar projects, but it's to actually promote the expansion of other projects? So it'd be to expand, or to, I'm sorry, you said to similar other projects.
To support similar projects like the Laia Wetland Restoration project.
So maybe something like support wetland restoration projects, including but not limited to. We did that last time.
Yes.
The Laia Wetland Restoration Project, because we have at least 2 already besides that one.
Yeah. And then maybe about the bike path, considering what Cody had stated before, as far as I understand, like Rob said, yeah, I would hate to put something in there about developing something that may not be wanted for a specific, maybe for a specific wetland area, maybe another one can, but I'd hate to just put it in there and then you're going to possibly do it to all. So.
Can I make another friendly amendment on that point, that it's to develop the low impact pedestrian bike paths where appropriate, or I guess appropriate would be the word. So that way it's giving us the flexibility to say, if you can do it, great. If you can't, then don't do it.
I wonder if there's a way to say it without saying being as specific as a pedestrian and bike path. I mean, the goal is really, for people to be able to interact with it without causing damage. I don't know if there's a way to do that without a pedestrian and bike path. We certainly don't want a mountain bike racing path there.
Then would it be okay to omit it, because 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, if it comes up again, it might be something that could be doable. But I think for now, I'd prefer not to put anything in there just because of that possibilities.
What if we took out, I agree on the bike path, but we just had the low impact pedestrian access where appropriate?
But what would that entail? Yeah, that would be left up to, who knows what. So, but I like having that walking path and so forth, but I don't know if we have to be specific at this time, just considering, how sensitive their projects are. So I would just say that's something that could be added in later. I'm sure it might be a discussion and where appropriate, but I'd prefer for myself not to putting anything in there at this time.
What if we took out develop and put evaluate?
Brian, what do you think?
Okay.
Yeah, I still struggling because Cody not here, but so he create his own path for keep everyone on that path and not go drifting side to side and create their own path, and he's struggling with that on his project, and even on the sand dunes, and then there's like Halama Street. Behind St. Teresa Church, those property owners, they have property that is state-owned, and sand dune restoration, protection, conservation, and all that, those signage. So even those signs, people just make their own path. So that's why I'm kind of struggling, how are we going? Because I like people, I like we go. We all should go and check out the beauty of what's left on our shorelines, but I don't have the right language on how to make this work yet. So.
Hi, Brian.
So I guess my thought was going off of Cody's concern of people creating their own paths. That if you make a path, but you restrict it in a way that they can't meander off as much, then you're kind of creating that destination path for them versus kind of just a natural path that people can kind of wander off. So it was more of an infrastructure and it would cost money, but I think the long-run benefit would be that people could enjoy it, but you're then kind of controlling how they access it, which is how I guess I was envisioning something along that lines.
Whoever first, then Vernon.
So maybe saying something like support low impact pathways where appropriate. So that would honor hopefully, like saying what you said, what Vernon was saying. So at least being open to the possibility of having low impact pathways, not making it just pedestrian and or bike. So just a pathway for whatever.
I like to use one of my hats because I can see the guy at the hat. He has the right language.
I was thinking more of manage access. Manage it, whether it's pedestrian or whatever. It has to be managed. That's the word I'm coming to my head right now. Whether it's to, in this case, try to manage access to the beach, manage access to the greenway, and I'm assuming it's through the wetland, right? So whatever goes through the wetland in terms of access has to be managed.
Chair. Yes, okay.
Questions to any of you who are, I'm not as ma with that area as some of you may be, but what I can remember of that place, just kind of monkeying around there as a child, access to the beach, is there even a possibility? Because there's mangroves over there, yeah? So if any of you can, I'm trying to envision access to the beach through that area because without damaging or controlling. Mangroves are such a hot topic in places in the South Pacific, so much so that they're protected by law because of the ecosystems they create and they protect. As you know, mangroves, they eventually grow out into the sea. And in places where they cut them back, that's the only way they control them. But there's places that, it's a touchy subject with mangroves. I'm not sure, Daniel or Vernon, is there even a possibility to get access to the beach through that area?
No more.
Right?
No more. So that's what I was asking earlier, how the beach access, the bike path. Because the only access is through, you got to get to Halama Street, and there's that skinny pathway. There's no parking without attracting attention from the homeowners from Halama Street. And then Lipoa Street is the only access we have. Everything in between is either gated or, we can't get access. So it's kind of just struggling with the beach and bike path access because there's no access.
I think this is actually mixing up two separate things. And the more I think of it, I think you're right that there isn't, and there's no even a reason why should there be specifically access to the beach there through the wetlands. That doesn't make sense. We want access for educational purposes, recreational to the wetlands themselves, but not as a way to get to the beach. There are other ways to get to the beach. Brian?
So I would agree with that, but if we were adding the language, which I might not have it exactly correct, but it's because we were talking about to continue to support and fund the project and the expansion of similar projects. So if we put that verbiage in, then I think saying something along manage access to the beaches makes sense because there may be a different area where there is appropriate, because we're still putting in there where appropriate. So that's what I would propose, that we word it so that we're not focusing just on the one project, although it is a component of that, but we're also saying if there's expanding to other similar projects where that type of managed access could be appropriate.
But this is only talking about wetlands projects. I mean, there could be other projects too, but, and the more I think about it, wetlands is not the place where you want to get to the beach. We really want to preserve the wetlands as intact as we can. We want to be able to walk around them, look at them, maybe walk through them if it's possible, but there should be other ways to get to the beach than through the few remaining wetlands that we have, seems to me. Gilkey?
Thank you, Chair. So this Laie wetland is what remains of it anyway, is quite a small ecosystem. When you look at Kealia, that's a large wetland ecosystem. And if you refer back to the old Kihei Makena plan, they had language in there about creating bike paths and usages once I don't want to get sidetracked, but once the bypass road was created, what will we do with the remaining road? And there's all kinds of great ideas out there as far as footpaths, bike paths. So something like that would be more appropriate with access because it's such a large area. Would that be pertinent to this action 408 as well? If you think about it. Just food for thought.
What?
So I think I would propose again to eliminate it because within the restoration project, they would probably have something that could state, how they want people to be able to traverse through, around it, or whatever it has to be. So without us having to be very specific here, I would say just leave it as is without going any further about the paths and so forth. But I do agree with Brian because we had said similar projects. So, if the focus just on Laie, maybe not having that pathway because it's not there, but other projects might have a possible pathway. So we want to make sure that if there could be a possible, agreeable means to manage it, as Daniel had said about the management component, but I just think we could leave it out and then just do what's best under the restoration project for each area that might include a pathway or no pathway.
Sure. Can I maybe make a suggestion? Maybe I'm trying to combine two different actions and maybe we need to separate the two actions and keep the one for this specific restoration project, removing that specific point that you're mentioning, creating another action that is basically the same thing, but references the expansion of additional wetland projects to then develop, now you're moving the words on me, to develop low impact managed access points such to the beach or areas such as the beach and greenways. I know that's not a motion yet, but
You got all that, Kavika? Daniel?
I can stumble through it again, but I guess more before we get to that, does it make sense for us to separate the two?
You omitted the additional, the one you took off, but if you put it back in, but if I understand Brian saying separate the two, take off the bike path, because we're wanting the support of the.
No, so for the first one, we take and other similar projects, that's going to come out, but that's going to be a separate.
That's going to come out, because we want to support the Laie Wetland Restoration Project and other similar projects. The part I recommended taking out is the second half, and then could make that the second part. I thought that's what you were referring to, because we want to continue to support the project and other similar projects, yeah?
So I guess I was proposing that we would take the promote and expand other similar projects as a whole of wetlands as a separate action. So we're doing this wetlands as just one specific action, and then the second action would be that we actually want to expand similar programs.
I don't understand why. Just keep them in one, and then that's just, I don't understand why we would have to separate it, because just by itself.
I guess I was trying to support your wanting to remove the development of the pedestrian bike paths, and to say that could be something that you would want to potentially implement with other projects, not necessarily this project.
No, I appreciate you saying that, but I do want to continue to support similar projects as well. And then on a separate one, if other projects could have pathways and so forth, that could be something that the restoration project could look into. So that's what I still want to keep the first sentence with the and other similar projects, that we want to continue to support them.
I think that makes perfect sense. That they're separate things. One thing is we want to continue to fund wetland restoration projects, including the Laie wetland. We want to do that. Second one is what type of access do we want to provide to them? I think that's a separate thing. And we could say provide walk-through access where appropriate, something like that. But I think it's a separate thing. Mike, and then Daniel.
Yeah, I'm just wondering where this came from. I certainly don't have the best memory, but I did attend all the community input projects. And I was on the Alakai, and I attended all. And as soon as somebody said bike path, that would perk up my ears, because I've been advocating for that for years. And I know where this project is, and I don't remember this ever being mentioned anywhere, but it must have been. And then I'm thinking, well, why? Why was it done? And the only thing I can think of is what Vernon was saying, is because the access was blocked off. There was access, and then somebody bought the property and put a gate up on one side, and same on the other side. So there was no access there. And was this somebody's attempt to say, well, you know, private entities have blocked off access? I don't know if that's helping any, but it made me wonder that, where did this come from? And as we know, that Garrett mentioned in the beginning, that there's been this turnover in the department, and it may have come from somebody who's no longer there. That couldn't answer the question, but it does make me wonder where this came from. Mahalo.
Then Daniel.
I get good memory. I think you brought this up. Nah, just kidding. No, it's so I just thinking takes a while. So continue to support the Laie Wetland Restoration Project and other similar projects. With the possibility of including management plan that could include pedestrian and bike path in the surrounding areas of the Laie wetland, kind of thing. Because and I mean, just sticking to that's the best I can come up with. But again, there's no access. There's it's all gated, it's all covered, and Lipoa Street and Hama Street is the only access. So I think the most important part is we got to support the Laie Wetland Restoration Project and similar projects.
Wayne, I'm sorry, Daniel, and then Wayne.
So this was ringing a bell in my ears. It sounded familiar, and I think I found where this may have come from, out of the current community plan. So under environment, under goals, preservation, protection, and enhancement of Keewamakina's unique and fragile environmental resources, and under objectives and policies, we have G, require the integration of wetlands and drainage ways into an open space pedestrian path and bikeway system within and around the Lipoa Business District, and initiate a wetlands enhancement project with the Kihei Franks development in coordination with the enhancement of county-owned wetlands adjacent to St. Teresa's Church, include a pedestrian and bikeway path to allow school children to access the beach and greenway. So that's in the current plan.
Wayne?
Mr. Chairman, I want to say something for the people of Hawaii. We are an island state, and many of our old timers remember the fact that they used to go fishing, camping, diving, you name it. Those that have been lucky enough to live near the ocean have totally blocked our residents from getting to the ocean. And now we gotta go park our car, figure out how we're gonna get through the access. And I think we need to use the word condemnation. There is hardly impossible. All you see is kapu, private property. Who are these owners? They block off access to the local people. And we gotta use a word condemnation. Who's gonna take care of this problem that you guys are all talking about but not taking any action? Government's gotta go and condemn and create beach right-of-ways to take care of the local people. You're killing our lifestyle. Why are we trying to protect all the private property owners that block all the beach accesses for?
So,
Maybe the planning can come up with some language. I don't care about bikeways. I care about local people getting access to the ocean.
Chair?
go ahead.
I don't know the policy off the top of my head because this was a while ago, but if I recall, we did write a policy to evaluate and open up spaces to the beach access. So, but in thinking about it, I don't think we necessarily have an action tied to that. So I can go look for it, but I just don't remember where it was.
Okay.
But I think that's an important. I think that Wayne, you're making an important point that if we wrote that policy.
Local people have become second-class citizens here on Maui. Period.
I had also marked actually that item in the Key McKenna Community Plan about requiring the integration of wetlands and drainage ways into an open space pedestrian pathway and bikeway system within and around Lipoa Business District. But that's not talking explicitly about walking through the wetlands. I think that's a different thing. I mean, this is a great goal, but it requires looking at a bigger picture than just the Laia wetlands or any other specific wetlands. Hi, Garrett.
H talks about, sorry. So you go down to H on implementing actions, which I read. Initiate a wetlands enhancement project with the Kie Franks development in coordination with the enhancement of the county-owned wetlands adjacent to St. Teresa Church. Include a pedestrian and bikeway path to allow school children to access the beach and greenway. I don't know why it specifically called out school children. It says there, but it does.
I think you're right. That must be where it comes from. Garrett?
Yeah, I was just maybe suggesting some language for 4.08. Could perhaps that second sentence be revised as, comma, including low impact improvements and access where appropriate? Just keep it as that, because it.
Can I make a comment? So it would be because what Daniel had said is spot on, but that was like a long time ago with less people. So of course, we don't, the damages that have been done, it's more sensitive now. So with what Garrett says, I would like to use that a verbiage to be added. Do I make a motion for that, or how does that work, Brian? For the amendment from Garrett, I think.
I liked it as well, but I like Daniel's managed access because I think that's the key point. We don't want to just have free access; that it needs to be controlled.
Can someone come up with specific language we can kind of
Wait, Brian, can I ask you though, but wouldn't that be part of the restoration project? Because if we're combining it on one, wouldn't that be the restoration project's responsibility to do that? If, I mean, I'm thinking, right, it would have to be, if they're gonna manage it, like who would, you just manage it separately or would be the restoration project that would manage it? Because I would want to, if I was that project, to manage every aspect of it.
Garrett, can you kind of work in the managed access into your proposal and see if we can come up with something?
I think we had management and monitoring. You think?
I'm sorry, Kavika.
All right, Kavika. All right.
It seems like the hang up is on Laie. What if we just take out Laie from the second sentence only and just use wetland restoration projects? And then add where appropriate.
Right, I was saying where appropriate. But I still like, I would suggest taking out bike path because I think that's going to be a lot trickier. And that can always be incorporated if it's possible, but I don't know if we need to call it out. So I think develop and implement low impact pedestrian access, I'm just trying to read through this, access, to allow access where appropriate. Did that make sense? Development and implement low impact pedestrian, impact pedestrian managed access where appropriate. And if I could just have one more thing, I think this would also tie back to one of our policies. It says that you would want to bring the cultural advisors in. So to your question of who would it be kind of managing, I think it would be the registration project, but it's going to be in concert with making sure that from a cultural perspective and from that side of stuff that it's checks and balances. Would be my thought.
Hey, Kavika, that's a good catch. I think we take out Laie, and then we put wetland restoration project and other similar project in the South Maui district. Just so that it is in South Maui district, that would include Honolulu, which have a few. So just want to make sure that it's in South Maui district, and we can stretch that all the way through Malaya. But we don't need to put Malaya. We just put in South Maui, the South Maui district.
It's actually Brian's motion.
So I think that I would just take the last part of that off. I don't think we need that, do you, Vernon? That it's just managed access where appropriate near the restoration project.
Yeah, I think we scratched that out, the last one.
Because that again gives us the flexibility that where you're not going to, it may not be the beach, it might not be a greenway, it just may be an access point, as you were kind of saying, to just view it but it being controlled, but you're really not going anywhere.
Because the wetland projects, they're already implementing and they're creating pathways. So organically, through education and public access, that information will be passed on. You know what I mean? It's not in written, but it's out there in the ether and space that, those pathways will be accessible through these those that manage these wetland projects.
Lua?
Yeah.
For the beginning, continue to support wetland restoration projects in South Maui, because you're going to take out the EA, and then just projects. So continue to support Yeah.
So continue to support and fund wetland restoration projects and other similar projects in the South Maui district.
Brenda, I have a question. What would be considered now then as other similar projects to any wetland restoration projects?
Oh yeah, so that's me. That's just me being 2.0. So we can
No.
take that out
No,
too.
no, no.
I mean, we're just making the box more skinny. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So I was wondering if what it would be. So
yeah.
So could I propose it's continue to support and fund, to support, fund, and expand wetland restoration projects? Again, I think expansion is an important component because we want to say that we want to continue doing it versus just doing the ones that we might have today.
So one thing I'm not quite sure, Vernon, Lehua, are you guys proposing to just remove Laia entirely, so they'll just say wetland restoration projects? Okay.
Chair Rob.
Yes.
Just comments. I would support that. I think my comments earlier would that would help support like that Kealia area because for future projects too. Yeah. I keep referring back to the '98 plan. Yeah, that Daniel was reading from page 22. Implementing actions D says develop a master plan for a recreational coastline access along North Kihei Road once the Ma'alai-Kealia bypass is planned. So this was back in '98. Nothing happened. So I think I would support the removal because it would still include the lei. Yeah.
no, Vernon recommended removing
Yeah.
it, and I did too.
Yeah. I'm in support of you guys
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I'm just adding on to
Yeah.
my manao on that.
Going to remove the Laie and then and other similar projects. And just after the word projects, plural.
See, so there was a train of thought when I was thinking of trying to, because it was a hot topic on my mind even before applying for this CPAC committee. And interestingly, it became, we hardly talk about the Kealia bypass. It's mentioned like 3 or 4 times in this, and it was buried once in ours. So I'm trying to like review it, like regenerate it. And so with that, I may not need to, Rob, introduce a separate action because this would include it. I know it's kind of putting the carriage before the horse because when we go back to transportation, I'm gonna try and revisit the Kealia bypass a little bit more firmly. I know you had some language like inevitable move. I want to just kind of, we'll get there though. We're not on transportation right now, but I think once we go back there, this will all make sense for the Kealia plans too as well. Thank you.
So the text that's up there, is that in accordance, Brian, with what you're thinking? Okay. And then who was the second for that motion? Oh, it was Wayne? Okay. Are you okay? No? Okay.
I want to speak
But
to the
who,
motion.
but who was the second for that motion?
I don't think it was made.
Was not made. Oh, okay. So Brian.
I'll second it for the
Okay,
record.
there we go. Okay, now Wayne.
All you guys have done is take away pedestrian bike paths. You're watering it down and eliminating pedestrian bypasses, public right-of-ways. You take it away. You've softened your stance and left the local people without any beach access that you so-called said you want. You've eliminated the language. Be honest. Be honest. Be truthful. With this motion.
So this is specifically about wetlands, and I think the
I was reading the language.
Yeah.
Pedestrian bike path.
right, but it's pedestrian bike paths in conjunction with wetlands. those are both very important interests, I think, of the people of South Maui. But if we lose the wetlands, what do we have left? And we really need to protect them. I think that's what we're saying here. Access is great, but protecting them is paramount. And where both are possible, we'll do both. I think that's what we're saying. This is definitely not in favor of gating, because the gating has nothing to do with the wetlands. Brian?
So I guess, Wayne, my thought is that this was for the wetlands. I would propose that we have a different motion to address specifically your point, to address the policy that we had recommended, to say opening up or reopening up access points that have been blocked to get to the beach and access points. So I guess I'm seeing them as kind of two different things. And I guess I'm taking some of Cody's guidance about the wetlands and trusting that that's the right approach. So I would be willing to make a separate motion that it addresses the access point to the beaches to address your concern that you think we're taking away from this one. If that would make you feel comfortable or better.
Thank you.
Okay, further discussion on the 4.08. Daniel?
Can you read the motion as it is now?
That's going to be difficult.
Continue to support, fund, and expand wetland restoration projects. Develop and implement low-impact pedestrian managed access where appropriate near wetland restoration projects, period.
Good enough. Because we was on that bugger for like 25 minutes.
Okay. Any objections to the 4.08 as on the screen?
No.
Okay, so we'll take a vote then. Those in favor of 4.08 is on the screen, please raise your hand. So, who's writing this down? Oh, you are, okay. And those opposed?
No.
I find the motion has passed. We are continuing to 9, we said last time. Do we want to take a 5-minute break? Okay, I see a few nods here anyway. 5-minute break, back at 8:25. I don't know if I need to do this, but I'll do it anyway. Resuming at 8:25 p.m.
You don't have quorum yet.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7. We do. Okay. We do. Okay. So the next one proposal is development and implement a comprehensive dune restoration plan, identifying methods, funding, and stewardship for the North Kihei area between the Noa Whale Sanctuary and the Kihei Canoe Club.
Chair, can I
Brian?
make a comment or a suggestion? Could we maybe address the motion that we said that we wanted to try to craft to address Wayne's concerns, so it doesn't fall off the roadmap?
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, it was fresh in memory.
So it was, and I don't have like specific language off the top of my head, but it was around developing a plan to regain appropriate access back to the beaches, or appropriate's not probably the right word, but it was to identify and develop a plan to reopen access points to the beach. And that's probably not the right language either, but that's the basis.
We did adopt something very similar to that. See, does anyone have that text in front of them?
But I think it was a policy. I don't think it was an action.
I think it was an action.
That's true. It should not. That's true. It should probably not be in this section. Okay. So can planning just note that we just need to identify where that should belong, so that at least I just want to respect what I honored to Wayne, that I would put a motion forward. I just don't want it to fall off the table.
So Brian, I would support you in that, and there is something, because I made I think a motion, and I was just learning how to do these things, but something I basically said, remove the gates that were improperly put,
Right.
to give access. So I remember that was something that was discussed, but I was told that it would be discussed at another time. So I have to go look back at my notes, but I did say those exact things, remove the gates. So
Okay.
yeah, it's there.
Thank you.
So considering that, should we just move on? Okay. Okay, here we go. One more time. Develop and implement a comprehensive dune restoration plan, identifying methods, funding, and stewardship for the North Key area between the Noah Whale Sanctuary and the Kihei Canoe Club. Vernon? Strike the Kihei Canoe Club?
Okay, so so how this ended up in this action? We start with that.
I think they're referring to it as an area, as a location, not the club itself.
Yeah. Okay. So there is, like Tower Owens. So there are things in place already that the Whale Sanctuary, Kalepolepo Park, Parks and Rec, and Key Canoe Club, they can reach out to people like Tara Owens and Cryle. And the same thing goes for the pink canoe guys. There are sand dune restoration pockets there. So there is things in place already. The trick is that the Key Canoe Club is not one good club that's supposed to help conserve what's left of the sand dunes. So if you look across you guys' place, ABC, all gone. But they're blaming the flood. The flood helped, but the canoe club guys, they 24/7 all year round. The beach can recuperate, cannot breathe. So it's people, traffic, water activities, down the road that help, get rid of the sand dunes. And so I just kind of not supporting this. I just thinking what best way we can. And then we go to the whale sanctuary. So all the sand that pile up against the whale sanctuary on the north side of that building, that's Kalepolepo Park. That's all still Kalepolepo Park. That extends all the way across to Kaonaulu Road, across Kulani Hako'i River Mount. It's still Kalepolepo Park. So there is talk with Wes and Tyra and others, including me, of how we're going to manage these sand dunes. Currently, I have a 10-year permit for that entire corridor to manage the sand in collaboration with Tara and Wes in that division. Res Crew. Yeah, the guy Abbott helped put it together. So I can sell part of my permits if you guys need them, or rent it. But just good information that there is things in place. But I just kind of, when I saw this 4.09, Kia Canoe Club moved. They moved, so they stay down there by Sugar Beach. So I gotta go meet with those guys because they wanna put their canoes on the sand dunes over there. And Cody and I, it's kind of no, but they're not gonna listen. They're gonna do it. And then to me, that's not appropriate because there's human traffic that's deteriorating our sand dunes. So if you look at the old location where Key Canoe Club used to be, the sand actually coming back up naturally. And those guys are gonna go move back over there. and then they're going to push the sand away again. So that's why I wanted to share this information, because stewardship is necessary, whether you get funding or not. You don't need funding, but funding help. And then the identifying methods. No put your canoe on the sand dune. Yeah, and there is plans in place already with the help of Wes and Tara. So that's just my spiel for now.
So first I was going to suggest that we just put in the latitude and longitudes of those points, replace those two names. But I think we can just remove it entirely, because we just leave it as North Kihei. But I'm pretty sure there is no such plan, and this language was developed in coordination with Tara and Wes. They want to develop a plan which is comprehensive, and part of that plan may be no canoes on the dunes. That could be part of the plan. Brian?
So, can I make a motion? Develop and implement a comprehensive dune restoration program, because I think program is a little bit wider than just a plan, which includes identifying methods, funding, stewardship, restrictions, and a monitoring method or methodology.
For the North Kihei area, or?
For the North, I guess, do we want to limit to North Kihei, or should we do for all of South Maui?
So, there is kind of a plan for the Kamaoli area. So I think really this is an area which badly needs one. And I mean, the plan would be different, I think, for other parts. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be additional plans, but I think this is particularly for a plan for North Kihei, which is kind of special and needs attention.
I defer to everybody because that's not my
Yeah,
area
I think
of expertise.
If Tara and Wes had something to do with this action here, then my sense is because that's the focus, not North Kihei, because of the proximity of the water and the relationship with the sand dunes and South Kihei Road. I think in the next 15 years we're all going to have to use my road, Kenoleo Road. But a lot of the sand movement happens in that corridor where it goes to like the whale sanctuary, the fish pond, and then the sand does come back, through the weather changes and currents. So again, if this is part of Wes and Tyra's action, then I think we gotta care for this action carefully and appropriately.
Yeah. And then Wayne.
I would like to support what Brian is saying. This is just for me, going to 5, 10, 20 years from now, we should include the whole South Maui that could be or will eventually be affected. So maybe if we would say develop and implement a comprehensive dune restoration or implement a comprehensive dune, somehow add management and restoration. So maybe the south side doesn't need as much as a restoration as the north side at this time, but it will probably come to that. So we might as well put in a management to make sure that it's being looked at properly. So I just would rather see all of it be part of this rather than just one specific area. So that's just my thoughts.
Wayne next, and then Daniel.
Mr. Chair, I don't pretend to be a material scientist. And if you look at what's happening in the state of Hawaii on the North Shore, Keoki probably knows how people are losing their homes due to high water rise. If you look at the island of Maui, we've lost 70% of our sandy beaches. Keoki knows, from Malaya all the way to Kalama Park was all sandy beaches. When the county of Maui built the jetty in front of Kalama Park, all the people along Halama Street started losing their sandy beaches. They put up stone walls, and due to flank erosion, scientifically, it was proven that all the beaches are gone. Look at Maui right now, Vernon. Look at Malaya, Keoki. Look at Tiari Lawrence and fighting for Honopi Ilani because the water's rushing up in the ocean. Look at the people in Honokawai because they built too close to the ocean. The sandy beaches are all going. Good or not, is up to the man up there that is creating this situation for us as human beings that I've had because we've been insensitive. And this is not the answer to sand dunes. Talk to Tara. I thought she came in and talked to both of this committee and see. They took a measure in Kahului Harbor. The tide level is 2.5. Now the recent tide levels are 4.0, Mr. Chairman. We cannot beat Mother Nature. We've done it to ourselves. And to be honest with you guys, you can't beat Mother Nature. The beaches are going to be gone, Vernon. I don't care the tide levels change. The sand is now on the South Shore and Waikiki. It's all in the ocean. They talk about pumping the sand back on a beach. I'm not a material scientist. I don't know the answer. But unless you guys are honest with yourselves and look at what's happening to the island, it's going. Thank you.
Daniel and then Vernon.
So this is an action under Mauka to Makai watershed management. And so the action is related to managing a watershed. And I think it's focusing on North Kihei, that there's a reason for that because of the impacts that stormwater floods have had down there around Ka'unulu Gulch and Waiakoa Gulch. It's been hit very hard over the last year or so. So I think there's a reason why we're talking about North Kihei sand dune restoration and not restoration of, all of South Maui. So it seems to be focused on that area, perhaps because of the flooding that's occurring in that area and the role that sand dunes may play in helping to manage those kinds of things.
So we could expand it. It's just that in reality, there's going to be a plan for each area. So like there's a plan for Baldwin Beach corridor. At least there's a proposal for a plan for the Baldwin Beach corridor. So maybe there'll be other plans needed as well. But there won't be one single plan. That's just the way they work. There's going to be one plan for North Key and maybe other plans for other areas. Vernon?
So we're just going focus on the north right now?
Up to you guys. We could expand it.
Yeah, yeah, that's a tricky one. Yeah, we could expand it too, but I just, Uncle Wayne, so yeah, we're losing our beaches, but the plan is all this climate change and losing a beach going in front of my house. That's the plan, and then I'm going to have beachfront. That's the goal. But yeah, we're going to lose South Kihei Road and yeah. So anyway, we're gonna make adjustments to this 4.09.
So the original motion was by Brian, is that right? Yeah, okay. No. Do you want to reformulate your motion as it stands right now so we know what we're discussing?
Yeah, so we should second first, and then I can amend.
Tova seconding, okay.
So-
What are you seconding if you don't have any ways of making the motion about?
Oh, I said we're not working with this language?
Is that the latest language?
That's the latest, although I would just propose a friendly amendment to say that we do say for South Maui with a focus on North Kihei, or a primary focus on North Kihei. So that way we are calling out that North Kihei is there, but I think to the wider discussion was that we don't know what the future is going to look like, so. And then the balance of that, the North Kihei area, all that would come out.
So Vernon's had his microphone in hand for a while, and Lewis says, okay, so I'm not quite sure of the order here. I think I can let them speak first, okay?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
For all that changing and adding.
Okay, I'm going to give it to Lehua first, and then Mike.
And that's what I was going to say, Brian, was in regards to, and I know, adding the emphasis. So, Rob, but you had mentioned something about later on they're going to add something maybe to the other end with this similar?
No, I'm just saying that they do like one area at a time. So a plan is not, they're not going to do a plan for all of Kihei even, or certainly not for all of Maui. They do a plan because each area is so different. You know, North Kihei is very different from South Maui.
Yeah, so, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Brian. So, but the reason I'm concerned about that is 20 years from now. I mean, is that when you're going to do the next plan? I mean, so what harm would it do to add it?
We have Mike, and then come back to the side of the table.
So what harm would it do to add it?
Yeah, I just wanted to add when we're talking about the difference in South Kihei, North Kihei. Back in the early 2000s, when KCA first became involved in the dune restoration, it was spearheaded by Bob Richardson and Lee. Bob was a VP with KCA at the time. And the work started in South Kihei, where it continued. But when Bob led the community outreach, and when he came up toward North Kihei and talked to the landowners north of Ka'ona'ulu about dune restoration, they were opposed to it. They said, no, we don't want, it's going to block our ocean view. No, we don't want it. We like it flat like this. So he just said, well, then, you know, the hell with it. We'll just work in the south side because the people up there don't care. So I think that's part of how it fits together, that all that work was done for years for the restoration around the Kamaoli beaches, and not much was done up north. Then when the whale sanctuary constructed that building, the newest building, that created a big impediment. And that's why we see, as Vernon is saying, that's that park, a club-level park. But yeah, all that sand builds up against that building like it's a retaining wall. So it did create two distinct situations where South Kihei was getting dune restoration continuously monitored. North Kihei was not. So I think that was part of why it got in this. And I too had talked to Tara Owens and Wes, and that's what they said to me. The whale sanctuary is the objection because they won't go along with it. And at that time, the superintendent was very cooperative. I thought he was very cooperative. But his answer was, the NOAA attorneys tell me no. That's who I work for. The attorneys say, no, we're not doing it, so we're not doing it. So I think that all adds into the situation that we have. Mahalo.
Back to the side of the table. Kyoki.
Thank you, Chair. No, I just wanted to comment in the notes over here, and we discussed a little bit. If you guys notice on the top Maui Village Association, they wanted to, they testified. They're currently pursuing sand dune preservation at Haycraft in Malaya, and we're asked to implement it somewhere in there. And I think with the change in the language, it would include that, huh? As far as in 409, omitting the whale and the Key Canoe Club area. Yeah.
It could, but I think it wouldn't be specific enough. It wouldn't be enough room behind it. So I mean, if you really want that to happen, if you really want county support to happen for a program for Haycraft Park.
Separate action?
Yeah. You want to call it out?
Yeah. Okay, when we're done with this one, then we'll go and visit that.
Cool.
Thank you.
Okay, so Brian, it's in your hands now. Because it's your motion. There have been a number of suggestions here, and you can reject them or accept them, and then we'll go to vote.
I'm not sure I caught that there was any changes. Did I miss one? A recommendation somebody wanted?
So everyone's okay with this? Okay. Okay.
I was like, wait, did I miss something?
Okay, cool. Okay. Any objections to 4.09 as on the screen for South Maui with a focus on the North Kihei area? Okay, fine. We have adopted 4.09. Keoki.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So as I mentioned a few moments ago, Maui Village Association, they had some studies done. They're trying desperately to replenish the beach there. Like Uncle Wayne mentioned, it's gonna be just this tug-of-war thing, because like in Waikiki, annually they pump sand. You know how many of our beach boy kupuna are scattered out there? Uncle Mo Kiale, all these people, they pump in all their ashes on the beach. Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. Anyway, that's what they're planning over there. Maui Beach is what they consider. If you go east to west, the last 2 or 3 condominiums once had, the sand used to go further than that, but recent times, the sand there is going away. So they have a restoration project going there, as well as fronting Haycraft Park. It ebbs and flows slightly. I've been monitoring it even before I was in the CPAC, and when it flows back, it doesn't flow back like it used to. So introducing a new action, I would greatly appreciate for that neck of the woods. It can be short and sweet, and we can discuss. So support sand dune preservation at Haycraft Park and Maui Bay Beach.
If I could just, I think in line with what we've been discussing, the past couple of actions, we make that a little bit sharper by saying implement, develop and implement a plan for sand dune preservation at Haycraft Park and Maui Bay Beach. I mean, it's up to you.
Yeah, no, that I agree.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I just wanted to kind of kick it off and then have this discussion evolve. You got that?
Develop and implement a plan for sand dune preservation at Haycraft Park and Maui Bay Beach. Seconded by Daniel.
Thank you, Daniel.
Now, on the one hand, you might think, why are we doing all this, specifying this particular area and that particular area? We're doing it because we want it to happen. We want money to be spent on it. Otherwise, it won't. Brian?
So, can I make a friendly amendment to change plan to program? Because a program is a more ongoing. A plan has a start and a stop. A program should be an ongoing process.
Do you accept that, Keoki?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. You okay with that? Yeah. Okay. Yes, Tova? Yeah.
I think the reason that we're seeing the word plan occur a lot is often getting funding is incumbent on having a plan. It's actually a specific deliverable. needed as a step. So just something to consider. Maybe we have a.
So a program always has a plan? I don't know about funding, so if it needs to have the word plan, does it need to have the word?
I don't know. I mean, I am guessing that the planning department might have had that in mind, just because so many things you have to show the plan. You don't have to show the program. You have to show the plan.
Lehua?
So would you be able to say develop and implement a plan/program? Is that acceptable?
I think it really matters. What counts is how the planning department is going to interpret it. What would actually lead to real action?
The reason is because I know what Tova's talking about, because before you can have a program, you have to have a plan, then it gets approved. But it's good to have an ongoing program, because sometimes when you fund the plan, it is only a plan, one plan,
Right.
and not a long program.
Ongoing.
So that's why if you say plan/program, I mean, I don't know if you can use that kind of verbiage, but
The only thing is that's often interpreted as plan or program when you have a slash.
okay, a plan and program.
Yeah.
There we go.
There we go.
Move.
I think you got it. Does
That's
that,
my friend Evan.
does that sound good, Kyoki?
Yeah.
Plan and program?
Thank you. All good stuff. That's what I was anticipating.
Cool. Wayne, you had a comment?
I don't care what the language we use today. In politics, there is a terminology called political will. And our leaders of today in Maui County, they lack it. If you want to see a plan done, then you fund it and you follow through with what your talk is. Talk is cheap. Actions speak louder than words. And all I'm saying is, while the language is good, you can digest it tonight. If you don't have political will, it'll never get done. It's the pipe dream that you're putting it up in the sky, making rainbows, who do whatever, Sputniks, I don't care what. It'll never get done.
Well, it'll never get done if we don't have a plan either. So if we have a plan, there's a chance. If we have no plan, we have no chance.
But I think, Wayne, to your point, the 4.10 discuss funding. Actually, it's funding for a specific position, but I think funding came up in another place. So I wouldn't necessarily tie the two together. I would let those be separate actions to say, hey, we have funding, but then we also have a plan or a program on whatever we want to land on.
You had a comment, Pua?
Yeah, just to change develop and implement a plan instead of the plan. That's all.
I think that's what it was originally, yeah.
Yeah. That's all.
Yeah, thank you.
Are we good with this?
Yeah.
Okay. Any objections to 4.09a? I finally adopted 4.09a about Haycraft Park and Malaya Bay Beach. 4.10, and I just had a comment there that Tara didn't ask for much, but one of the things she did ask for was additional resources for dune protection. I mean, Wes was hired primarily to generalize the program that we have and have in South Kihei for dune restoration, which was really successful, but based on volunteer work, and those volunteers became older and moved up country and are no longer driving it. And so it needs like an institutional basis to keep going. But they can't do all of Maui. They can't do North Shore and all the other areas too. So, so anyway, I just wanted to put it. It says continue to fund a position. Tara was asking for additional positions, additional resources. But I'll read what it says anyway. Continue to fund a dune management coordinator position and fund the implementation of strategies for sand dune protection. And personally, I think those things go together. I mean, there's only so much Tara and Wes can do. So, Lehua?
Just to so if you can clarify, please. So there is an existing dune management coordinator position, and that's for the entire island?
That's right. That's
So-
Wes.
Yeah, so are we asking for one specifically for South Maui, or that's not possible? We're just asking for the continuation for the entire Maui?
We could ask for a dedicated dune management coordinator position, but it's probably not an efficient use of money.
Yeah, I just had to clarify because it doesn't state either. So if I didn't
Right.
ask, I wouldn't know. So if we
Okay.
can make it specific that says it's for the entire island, so in case other people may have the same question that I do, we understand that it's for the entire island, which is good and then more efficient that way. But I just have to clarify.
Garrett?
Yeah, the college Sea Grant staff, both Tara and Wes, have been a great resource. But they're assisting the county departments, but they're through Sea Grant. So to the best of my knowledge, they're funded through a bunch of different sources, whether it be county, state, the university, grants. So yeah, whatever resources we can get to grow that team. They're very few of them, but they do a real critical job for us.
Actually, I think Tara is funded through Sea Grant, but I was one of the ones who lobbied in the budget, I guess it was 3 years ago, something like that, for the county to allocate the first dune management coordinator position, which was Wes. So that is county. And so this is, obviously the money could come from anywhere, but I think this is most likely directed towards county. It does say county and state. Daniel, and then Luhua.
Yeah, I think Tara's position is funded through Sea Grant, but there's also some matching funds from the county, which allows her to work here.
Yeah, Luhua.
Yeah, I just want to make a motion. And then, but just, can we add for South Maui? I mean, for the, I guess, I don't know if it's just island of Maui or county of Maui, but just to be specific, if we can add that somewhere in there. Is that possible to do that?
You can make a motion.
Okay, so I make a motion to continue to fund a new management coordinator position for the island of Maui and fund the implementation of strategies for sand dune protection.
Second by Tova. So that is still to continue to fund the existing capacity, and I wonder if we don't need more. And we're already talking about the need for a North Kihei. We just said that we need a North Kihei dune restoration plan, and we're not the only ones. I mean, Kihei is not the only ones. Brian,
Can I make a friendly amendment to remove continue to and put in expand funding for dune management coordinator roles and fund the implementation of strategies for sand dune protection?
was Tova made the motion, or?
I made the motion.
Oh, okay, Luhua made the motion. Yeah.
I want to see their writing first, if can.
But say it again.
In writing, if you can type it
Oh,
out.
okay, yeah.
Sorry. Please, Kavika. Thank you.
For doing management coordinator roles. right?
Roles.
Yeah.
Because that way we're not asking for one single position.
Yeah. And then remove the A. Move the A before dune. For student management coordinator roles, plural. Yes. There's an S after the role, and then remove the A. There we go. Okay. Right? Correct? Tova?
I gather that South Maui Parks is adding 3 positions to assist with dune management, hoping to have hiring done by the summer.
Wow.
Blink twice if you work for the county and you've heard this too. But just for our situational awareness about the level of support coming for this for South Maui, in case that changes our feeling. Much needed, because as you pointed out, otherwise it's all volunteer.
Okay. So that was the motion. Do we have a second? Oh, the second was?
But is that what you're recommending? Does that, okay,
Oh, okay.
so I accept.
Okay. Yes, okay. Discussion? Any objections? We adopted 4.10. Daniel?
We've passed 9 o'clock,
We did.
so maybe we can do a Forrest Gump and keep going to finish, because we are behind. I don't know what people's schedules are, but I'd be willing to push a little longer.
We have planning department staff here too. What's your limit? Oh, Kavika's fading. Kavika's fading fast. I don't think we can continue this meeting without Kavika.
Planning is willing to support CPAC.
You're able to?
I mean, it's up to you guys.
Maybe go a little bit longer.
Okay, I'm not hearing or seeing any objections, so it means we'll keep going a little bit until Kavika falls asleep, and then we'll definitely call it over. Okay, for the next one, 4.11, I think. Oh yeah, we had a suggestion from. Who was that? Oh, it's from Rory Frampton. It says create a South Maui Ridge to Reef initiative. You know, there is a West Maui one, to leverage resources across several agencies and community groups to implement actions to reduce land-based pollution that impacts coral reefs. And Rory was suggesting to add or other nonprofit entity. In other words, not restricted to Ridge to Reef. I think the reason for Ridge to Reef is because we have a successful model in West Maui. Okay, do you have a motion?
So moved, including the recommendations by Michael.
Rory, right?
Or Rory, sorry.
Yeah.
Well, didn't Michael say it first and Rory supported it? It's the same one.
Do we have a second? Second by Tova. Okay, discussion?
So I was the one suggesting that there might be some overlap with the new policy we added about a watershed advisory group. And I should recuse myself from this because I coordinate the West Maui Ridge to Reef initiative that was responsible for the language here, I'm sure. It isn't a nonprofit, it's a coalition, and what it does is bring everyone together in the manner described in the additional action that we've already put in. So if this language means something to people and feels distinct from the other, great. We added in 4.06, wait. D?
It's the second to last one on the last page with Robin, by Robin.
Oh, yeah, sorry. The purple print at the bottom below 417.
I think the difference is, I mean, I think you're right, there's a lot of overlap, but 4.11 spells out some of the responsibilities of that organization, whereas the one we adopted earlier doesn't really. And you're recusing yourself because of?
Well, only it feels funny because that's what I do, and I'm starting to do in South Maui. But, and.
So you're against it?
No, I'm 100% for it. We absolutely need this. We're already working on making this happen, whether it happens through another organization or whether it happens in the way it's happening. But I'm not wanting to step on toes, essentially.
So I'll second if you rescind your second. Yeah.
Okay, seconded by Lehua. And that's with the with Rory's or other nonprofit entity. Discussion?
Yeah, sorry. Rich Reef is not a nonprofit, so other similar nonprofit implies it is a nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
It's a coalition. It's an initiative.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Maybe if I could, maybe other, other entities such as a nonprofit? So just take entities and put it in front of?
Or another organization such as a nonprofit, or another entity such as a nonprofit. Is that because that doesn't imply that Rich Reef is a nonprofit?
I'll accept.
Further discussion? Any objections? Okay, we have adopted 4.11 with that addition. Obtain funding and implement a program to monitor and care for all South Maui nearshore waters. It sounds pretty vague. Isn't that kind of vague?
Yeah, give me 150 grand, I go monitor.
Kavika?
And then we can.
I just wanted to advise this body that we have a hard stop at 9:30 because we're going to run out of recording space.
Okay. Let's finish this one anyway. 4.12.
Do we know what we're monitoring? I mean, other than the water, but.
It just seems very vague to me. I'm sorry. I don't know exactly what this would do.
I guess I just had a question when we referenced nearshore waterways. Is it either, is it under county jurisdiction? Again, if it's high water mark to the ocean, I mean, that whole area is it DLNR? Is it Army Corps? Yeah. So I don't know how much we can actually legally do as a county necessarily once we get, into the water.
Tova?
So the county does currently support our nearshore water quality monitoring program in part.
Yeah.
So in the same way that some of these other projects are just in there to be funded, perhaps this was trying to make sure there's support for that. So Huioka Viola is what we have going currently.
But that monitors, but doesn't care for it. That's the part. The monitoring that's pretty clear to me how you do that. The care for, I'm not sure exactly what that means.
Yes, if this were talking about our program, then I would say and support actions identified through findings of said program.
I'm still kind of struggling with this because we have, for example, the injection wells, right? That's a really big thing. Does that come under this? I mean, doing that to me, that's part of caring for South Maui nearshore waters. But that's so big that should be called out. I mean, this just seems too vague to me. Sorry. Kioki? Okay. Vernon?
So this your program? Oh.
It is a shared program under the coalition. I have no idea if that's what we're talking about. We have this water quality monitoring program.
Monitoring is one thing, so that I'm clear on.
And then we advocate for action.
Vernon?
Yeah, I don't know. So we lost our audience tonight, but so like just using the Save the Wetland Hui, for example. So then here comes Maui Nui Marine Resource out of the blue. We asked for $200,000 for our Save the Wetland Hui, and then now they're going to try and jockey some of that funding for do wetland restoration or conservation. So So for me, and I know there's several of us in this MOKU, we get too much groups, too much monitoring, too much everybody overlapping each other and then jockeying for funding. I'm not in the reach out part for funding. I just umbrella everything. So yeah, just people just want to do monitoring and testing, and same with like even Malka, So sorry for being all over the place. So that fish pond, Ko'i'e, I wouldn't give them any more money. We got to save money and send the money up Malka for like fencing, to improve our situation up there, because whatever they do down here at the fish pond, it just gets run over. It's just like you got the tornado alley. The house is all gone, and then they still build in the same place again, knowingly it's going to get wiped out next year again, possibly. So we just going over and over, and funding just need to be managed better. That's where I'm coming from. So yeah, it's just kind of vague, kind of would like this thing spelled out better, like actions maybe. What that's just me commenting.
I mean, care for all South Maui nearshore waters, that sounds like the responsibility of a department or an agency. I wonder if we could just remove that and just limit this action to monitoring. And then as we think of specific actions for how to care for the waters, we come up with that. I mean, if I had an idea in my head about creating a new division or division of the planning department or of some other department, then but I don't know how we do this. Daniel?
Yeah, that makes sense to me, because we're talking about actions, and an action specific and measurable. Funding is specific and measurable. Water monitoring is a specific action. Monitoring water for water quality, it's part of the what we're talking about, Makatumakai watershed management. So that seems clear enough to me, as opposed to care for all South Maui nearshore waters. That's not how you measure that, what actions. But monitoring, yeah. Funding, yeah. So I can see that as something that would support the goal to manage our watershed. And if anybody has any other specific ideas to include in that would be great too.
Brian?
Could we remove the and care that's being recommended and put in identify or recommend actions for all South Maui nearshore waters? Obviously, I'm getting tired.
So who made the original motion? Or it has not been made yet? Hasn't been made yet, okay. Adehua?
Is there any place that we've previously discussed, even a while ago, that has something similar to this added to it? Or is this just a totally separate, independent program?
So it's similar in a way to something we adopted earlier today, which was monitoring the runoff.
Okay.
It's kind of complementary.
Yeah.
And
So I was just thinking that maybe it could be part of that, because nearshore runoff and et cetera, to me, is kind of, complementary. So I didn't know if we absolutely needed this, though it sounds good, but if there is something similar, we should look at that again.
So, I mean, Tova has experience with this kind of a program, so I'm just curious, does it make sense to combine those, or does it make sense to look at them as separate programs?
They are separate programs. One supports an understanding of loading on an event basis, which allows you to plan more appropriately for stormwater management. The other gives you a long-term data set that allows you to understand trends over time and see whether or not your interventions or the land use changes are impacting in the positive or negative direction. So they are quite different in that way. the fact that they've pinged state for funding here makes me wonder if this is thinking that it's tapping into a specific idea that we're not we're not leading into. I mean, there was something in the ledge this year, which has gone through a number of readings, that was about monitoring nearshore waters that went beyond your regular Department of Health parameters, including contaminants and other things that we're concerned about. So I think this either needs to be more specific and defined. I mean, the care for nearshore waters, that's like a vision statement. That's not an action plan.
So my question would then be, so who would this person or program report to?
It depends what this program is, but currently there is a coalition of nonprofits that uses volunteers and has a quality assurance plan that's certified by the Department of Health, and all the data is publicly available to whoever. So we are it works as a coalition. We don't report to anyone. We do give the data to EPA, Department of Health, anyone who wants it. But it isn't quite set up in that way. We'll tell anyone who wants to listen.
Okay, because I'm just thinking if you're going to have something like this, that who gets the info, and I'm just trying to find the validity in it before, trying to move forward.
I mean, so if I were going to say, okay, let's make this something that's needed in South Maui, I would say continue support for nearshore water quality monitoring.
I would actually move it further. I would say, ensure complete continued water monitoring. In other words, we have something that's working, but it could stop working in 2 years if we didn't have the volunteers, for example, or if the funding dried up. So we need both of those, or we need employees to do it. But basically, the idea is it has to happen. We need this. Brian?
Do we want to have anything around the actions that they're identifying and making recommendations for actions? Because it's one thing to just monitor, but if you don't do anything with the data, then it doesn't really help you.
I agree, that is our philosophy in Huiokawaiola. I'm just not sure how to make that an action that then goes in a plan that goes to the planning department and what they're doing, because that will end up being really diffuse set of actions required. So, I mean, I don't know, maybe some guidance on is this the place to include something like that, or is it too amorphous?
Let me throw something out there. Let's separate that into two separate actions. So this one's about, I would say, is about monitoring, and we have something that works. We want to make sure it's still here in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. But in terms of what Brian is suggesting, which I think is really, really interesting, you can have goals like improving the and probably Tova can give us what the metrics are. Goals for improving the water quality in the ocean.
I
Like
think
at Kalama Beach, things like that. In other words, based on the monitoring, based on the data that we gather, come up with a plan for how to reach measurable improvements. Lehua?
So if it's just an individual, a group, or whomever that would be monitoring the nearshore waters, could they themselves apply for funding if they wanted to? So there's no restrictions if they had wanted to, because they said, because they're going to say we do the South Maui nearshore waters monitoring, so we want to apply for some funding. They could, right?
Yep.
Such a good point. It needs to say quality assured.
Yes, because that's anybody can apply, and
yeah.
So that's why I wanted to know who they're reporting to. So that's the only reason I had said that. Like, who would monitor them? Because like Vernon said, Pam, how much, Vern? 120,000 you would monitor.
So I mean, you're right. We don't report to, but the program is certified by the Department of Health.
Yeah. So
and it is we're supplementing what the state has a mandate to do. They just can't do it frequently enough.
Because I've seen people have these programs, ask for funding, and it's, so I just want to make sure I'm going to support something that is, trustworthy and valid. So.
can someone formulate a proposal here? And I would recommend keeping this narrow, and then if we want to do something else, make it a separate action. Tova?
Continue to support quality assured nearshore monitoring. And distribution of data and findings.
And then remove the everything after the and. Or, yeah, remove the and everything after it. Oh, I'm sorry. Just remove the and care for all. Let's see, yeah, remove monitoring of all South Maui nearshore waters. Monitoring of all South Maui nearshore waters. Right.
Yeah, all doesn't make sense because it's water. It's an uncountable item. So, yeah.
Okay. So whose motion is this? Okay, so out for all South Maui waters then.
Water quality monitoring. For South Maui nearshore waters.
That's important. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, water quality for South Maui, and then you don't need the other part, right? So we can remove the nearshore waters then, because Tova says
Remove the first near shore, please. It's past my bedtime. I can't do English.
I think it's okay. It's okay to have water twice. Water's a good thing. Put a dash between quality and assured.
So I guess question for you, is quality assured is an equivalent certified or approved?
If you wanted to get technical, you'd say QAPP. You'd have a QAP, which is the Department of Health
So
specs.
I would propose that we put that in.
Okay.
Because I think quality assured water quality monitoring just sounds weird.
Because QAP sounds normal.
Because QAP sounds much better. I quack that.
Say QAPP.
Yeah, but I mean, you would have to say Department of Health.
DOH.
Can we put a pin in this language and I'll give you the sentence when it's not past my bedtime? I mean, it's essentially what we need to have in there is that it would be a Department of Health quality assurance project plan. That's what makes it quality assured. So if we're worried that quality assured is too squishy, that's what locks it in.
DOH. No, just put DOH QAPP.
Yeah, just put a DOH QAPP, and if we agree on that, we can.
We can always amend it
We can
later.
DOH and then QAPP.
do that thing where you make the words better, which I can't think of.
Amend.
Okay. Okay. So whose motion was this? Is Brian's?
Sure.
And then who's second? Tova's. Okay. Further discussion? We have about 3 minutes left to our hard stop until everything falls apart. Brian's done. Any objections? Okay, we have finished 4.12 as on the screen. And calling the meeting closed at 9:27 p.m. That was a record.
I think we're